Hey, everybody. We got a very special episode tonight. Sam and I are going to go through the deep linguistic history of America. Not really. We're just going to talk about the things we always talk about. almostagreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, the website, almostagreement.com. Check out the cool stuff we got going on there. Hallelujah is upon us. I've got an exciting new Derby entrant that I'll probably talk about at some point. But hallelujah.co, register there for a Derby car or vendors. We should be announcing different details very soon, so get us on one of the socials and follow us there, because that'll be the best place to find news and important updates of that event as it goes on. We, Almost Agreement, are on your favorite podcast providers. Like, friend, share, follow, text us to your friends. Anything you can do to spread the word. We're going to do a show, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about, so we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So here we go, everybody. It's showtime. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
How you do?
How you be?
I be. Yeah, so lots of stuff going on this week. Very interesting highlights that included the successful return of one Sheriff Spangler. Who's out in the public eye this week. Haven't seen a lot of him as of late, but he's looking good. He's got hair back on his head. He's gone through his cancer treatment and seems to be doing okay.
That's right.
However, he also was looking bad because he was kind of it wasn't the most sheriff-friendly meeting that he was a part of. Which, I mean, there's a couple different parts of it. So, I don't know, did you hear about it all? As Damian Rawls, one of the county commissioners, requested a public meeting with him, and it was just kind of
no idea,
a public forum thing. So,
I was about to say, what was this again?
It was basically that he wanted Damon Rawls, on behalf of his constituency, wanted to have a little public convo with the sheriff about some of the different issues. We had the guy that died in immediately leaving the detention center, and it definitely looked like he got beat on pretty bad while he was in the detention center, but also, died shortly thereafter. The autopsy was meningitis related, kind of whatever, blah, 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 complications. And then the kid down in the South Doyle student who the SWAT raid, the 7 a.m. SWAT raid or whatever, that he ended up getting killed because the suspect displayed a gun, which is cop speak for we don't know exactly what, but there was a gun present that wasn't one of the officer's guns. We don't know the details of it, and that one to me was the crazy one.
So recently, the police report said that he pointed an assault rifle at them.
Okay,
that was in the police report. I don't know,
and but that's kind of what that particular part of the hearing or the conversation or whatever was the most shocking part to me.
Really?
I saw cliff notes of it. I watched bits and pieces of it, but the number 1A is that Sheriff Spangler, quote, "I did not realize our SWAT teams did not have body cams." I thought it was I found that a bit shocking, to be honest.
He was asked about it, or volunteered that.
Basically, it was like like all the complaints and all the conjecture from the public on what happened would be solved easily if your SWAT teams have body cams. And he responded with, "I did not realize our SWAT teams didn't use the body cams." Gotcha. And then later on went to talk about how expensive it would be to get them body cams and everything else and stuff like that. But I found it a little surprising that he did I don't know. I feel like that would be a decision that would probably go across his desk on a unit that is exempt from wearing body cams.
Well, the city, I want to say like the city got a grant or applied money from the city or whatever to get KPD officers more body cams. So I'm not sure if I've heard much about the county. I know some of the county do, but I don't know how widespread. Just their general officers.
Yeah, I guess to me, I would think the SWAT team would be the first on the list. Be my take on it, since their general function tends to be, well, I mean, by design. I
think that's something they're not even having to have like available every day. Like they've got 8 that they keep on ready for SWAT whenever they need to go on a SWAT raid. I don't know. Right.
I mean, with the cool car and all the other stuff that SWAT has that the other units don't have, you have a set of body cams that goes with their gear. I would think that would make sense to me.
I think some carry their gear with them.
Yeah,
if they're on SWAT, because
you got a buddy. We need to have a question. That'd be a good Q&A with that guy. But either way, I just feel like that to me would make just because the design of the SWAT unit for the specific task that the SWAT unit is going to do, they're going to be in situations that are more likely to have bad outcomes. I would think. Is that a crazy thing to say? Because of what they do, and the more dangerous version of this situation that they are put in by design, it is more likely that they're going to have outcomes like this. So that would be the first unit I think you would put cameras on. That's just, I don't know. That's my assertion in the thing.
Yeah.
And so, no promises from Spangler that they will get them in the future, but he acknowledges the fact that probably it's not a bad idea. But he also, he knows here in a couple weeks he's got to go to Mayor Jacobs and ask for a budget, and he knows Mayor Jacobs ain't going to give him shit. So, he can play the little threaten to sue game like he did last year. We could do that again and see how that goes. But
what was the lawsuit threat last year?
Basically, somewhere in state law, there's basically if the sheriff feels like the county is not appropriating enough funds for him to do his job as the state requires, he can basically sue for more money out of the county, and the state law will back that up because the state law says counties are obliged to fund sheriffs at a level to get to do the job to a certain level. Now that's where the gray area is because it's an argument about how much they need, and I mean it's obviously an arguable point. But
I could do a better job if you guys gave me like 20 more K a year.
Right, but better. But I mean, but again, the argument that Spangler's making is not better job. I can't do my job without more money.
Huh.
I can't do my job as the state requires me to.
His salary, or this is to expand?
This is the sheriff's office.
The
period
budget. Okay.
Yeah, the sheriff's office budget.
Gotcha.
I don't think.
Okay.
I think the sheriff's budget or the sheriff's salary personally is set by county commission.
Right. Yeah, I think we've talked about that.
And I think he can ask for a raise or whatever, but. I would assume that's inside his budget. I don't know. That's a good question. Is his salary part of the sheriff's office budget, or is it separated from? I would think it is, but
I would think it'd be separate. Yeah.
No, I would think it'd be part of. I mean, if you're the sheriff, you want it to be separate so you have more money for your things,
right?
And you don't have to worry about that in your budget process. But since it's an elected office, the budget or the
I guess that budget is also for officer salaries. Yeah.
Right. But since it's an elected office, that salary is public, and I think it's set by the county. I think it's set by the state, or they're the minimum set by the state, and then the counties adjust it as needed. But that's a county. I think it's a separate voting issue from county commission, but it still goes inside his budget. Like he can't get a $20 million budget, pay himself $5 million, and only spend the other 15 on whatever.
Yeah,
he gets a $20 million budget. His salary is not. He can't set his own salary. I guess is the point I'm getting to in it. So anyway, it was an interesting conversation. It was it was a number of issues because it goes back to the one that with our friend. I have a lot of questions about what happened to our friend, whether it was KPD, whether it was in KPD's custody, UT's custody, the sheriff's office as in the detention center's custody, on what happened to her.
Yeah,
there's a lot that we don't know the answer to, and probably never will. And the skeptic that I am is going to blame the cops because I just blame the cops for everything. But it's certainly there are factors in there that certainly raise questions in my particular case. Same with this guy that died similarly leaving the detention center not that long ago. And so I guess the point of the meeting was that these things aren't as rare as they should be. So what do we got to do to get this to be more rare? It's not, I don't know if Rawls said it or not, but from my perspective, shit's going to happen. That's just the way the world is. But the shit's happening too often, and we got to figure out how to fix that part.
Right.
And, Spangler didn't have any real good answers because he couldn't. I mean, it's not his fault per se. He can't promise anything. He can't say I'm going to get body cams because he doesn't have a budget for it. But, I mean, he at least took it, which is rare for a sheriff, and not just Spangler, but all the sheriffs we've had recently, to take a public meeting like that and subject himself to the public. Speaking of, that's a complaint. Mr. Timmy Burchett's been AWOL as of late, apparently.
I saw some clip he was on. I think it's like a new CNN show or something.
So I think I think the one I'm representing is, so I don't know that I don't recall Burchett ever doing like regular town halls or anything like that as a sitting rep. Like some reps used to do that. Some reps do that. Some county commissioners or city councilors will do that. They'll have a every Tuesday at this place. They'll be there hanging out if you want to come say hi.
Right.
If you have some questions or you want to talk about something, they'll be there. It's a public whatever. I don't know that Tim's ever done that. But I think there are, and I think this is a national trend. I think there's a push from the Democratic Party in strong red states to make a big kerfluffle about it as a political move. And I don't mean this dismissively, but I think it's intentional because all of a sudden out of nowhere, my feed in Facebook has just been like, and they're funny. They're actually really good funny, which is, what the Democrats used to be good at social media at is making good jokes. But like missing posters, like side of a milk carton, missing Tim Burchett. He hasn't been seen. There was a Bigfoot one. Like the memes are great memes. They're well done memes. But I think it's a concerted effort specifically to make something out of nothing. Not that it's not nothing. He should be open to his populace. Don't get me wrong. Now, there is some people that are claiming that they call his office and get hung up on and stuff like that. I've called his office plenty of times, and I get to say my piece, and they say, okay, thanks, we'll let him know. Do I think they actually let him know? No.
Right.
But, they've always been polite to me, but I'm polite to them, and, maybe some of the people are calling rude, and they just hang up immediately because they're being rude. I don't know.
I've seen some of the news about, like, town halls, and you're right. I mean, I'm not sure how often, quote-unquote town halls are done, if it's normally kind of like after the election, of kind of like, hey, let's talk to the public, let you know what I'm going to do in the next 4 years, whatever. I think but depending on the official, some elected officials like to do them or feel obliged to do them by the job. They feel it's important because they got elected to even just because I went out and shook hands and knocked on doors when I was asking for your vote doesn't mean I'm just going to lock myself in my office once you voted for me. Right.
And they feel like it's an important thing for them to do. And I think that's appropriate, is to be available to their constituency. But at the same time, it's not obliged. It's not a requirement. And like I said, as far as I can recall, it's not something Timmy ever did. He didn't regularly do them. And so it's not like all of a sudden out of nowhere he stopped doing them because he doesn't want to face the public because, like, essentially it's a bunch of Doge and other Trump issue stuff that the left's mad about and people in general are mad about, maybe not just the left, but I think this is a conservative effort by the left is they have been treated. It's not. Okay, let me clarify. I don't think it is. I know it is. It is a concerted, designed tactic by the Democrats currently to try to make Republicans look bad.
Okay.
It's a concerted effort to do so because what they're doing is like, we want you to answer for why you're voting with Trump on this, that, and the other, which is a fair question as a constituent to do. And I'm not doubting that part of it either, but it's like, it's to me, the feel part of it to me is that it's purely for politics. It's trying to soften a seat so that a Democrat in the future election could fare better, which I don't think Timmy's got any threats. If he wants that seat, he keeps it as long as he wants. But I think it is I think it is a National Democratic Party op, for lack of a better word, that's in play right now. Because there are senators and congressmen that are in less stable position where this is more effective. And so it's a less stable position. Like the Republicans that are in less stable seats, this is to start already churning up stuff for the next election cycle is a good move on the Democrats' part for those seats. It makes sense to me.
Okay.
Why would you why else would you put forth effort to make a "Where's my representative" to do a "Where's my representative" campaign for a representative who's never been open to the public? Like, why all of a sudden now?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think I do, and you're giggling at my.
I don't know. Have you looked to see where this ad came from? You act like it's widespread.
It's not an ad. It's a meme.
Okay.
It's a series of memes, a bunch of memes. It's in my friends group. It's like the same 15 people sharing all these different memes going around. But I mean, there is active political will to at least annoy the shit out of Burchett by a collected group. Now, I would agree that probably 60-70% of that group would annoy Burchett just because they want to annoy Burchett, regardless of a concerted effort or not. They're like, hey, this is a fun way to annoy that guy. I like to annoy that guy because I don't like him. But I still think that this is a design. I think there's a broader game at play than just.
But you think the National Party is behind it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not Tim specifically, but I think the National Party is saying.
Okay, what is their goal? If you said this is a safe seat, why would they spend time and effort?
What did I just say? I don't think that's Tim specifically. I think they are calling on all the people in the country, all their good Democrats, to ask for public meetings with their officials, and when they say no, hound them about not being open to their constituents. And I think, but I think it's just one of those, like the National Party sent out an email or to people that signed up for an email or activation lists or whatever they call themselves. Right. That have gotten this saying, it's like, hey, right now, the advocacy move we want to do is we want to push for your representative in your region to publicly answer for why they're agreeing with Trump on X, Y, or Z. So go out there and ask for a public meeting. And when they refuse a public meeting, go out there and make a big stink about them refusing public meetings. I think that's a perfectly simple, straightforward tactic that the Democrats and Republicans have used for years.
Take a breath.
No.
Okay.
I'm not angry.
You sound like it. I have seen something.
I mean, I'm angry in general, but not about this particular issue, and I'm certainly not angry.
You sound very heated in this issue in the moment, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm a little disappointed. I question why you doubt the conniving nature of the parties.
I don't doubt the conniving. Never mind. I think I've seen something recently on. I think it supposedly came down from like the National GOP Party about telling their representatives to maybe back off on the public town hall meetings and maybe do like virtual town hall meetings. So I'm sure you've seen there's a few clips that went viral of people getting up and yelling at their representatives. Yeah,
I think that's part. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's part of that whole. I think it's a whole effort, and the part.
I think it's also to the point in that town halls aren't that uncommon. In Burchett's sake, I have no idea. Like I said, I don't know how often he does.
Like I said, I think it depends on.
But I think representatives, on average, town halls aren't exactly rare.
No,
but at the same time, even a congressperson that doesn't do it, I don't think it's quite out of the realm of a constituent's right to say, "Hey, you've never done this. There's no reason why I shouldn't ask you that. Maybe for a first time, maybe you actually want to listen to us."
Right. I didn't mean to. If at any point in my raging on about the topic to say that there was something wrong with somebody asking for it, I didn't mean that at all. I don't think
you threw it in there a minute, but when you first kind of let off, it sounded like, oh, I mean, he's never really done it before. Like it did kind of seem like it was a crazy ask to begin with. You did throw in there that it's not something out of the realm of possibilities to ask for, or a constituent should have.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem to ask for it, but. Right. But to be fair, I don't think it's appropriate to not do them. I think you should, especially if you get an onslaught of a request. I mean, hell, just if you're any good at being a politician, you should be able to sit in a room full of people that hate you and at least let them yell at you for a little while and feel better and go home. It's good for you to just let them, cathart on you. I did my thing. I yelled at Burchett. Is he going to change his vote? No. Right. But I yelled at him. I told him what for.
There was one rep, but I guess he told him like he was going to get like an hour with them at the town hall, and I don't know if something did come up, but all of a sudden he was like, "All right, I got other places to be." Not his exact words; it was paraphrasing, but he's basically like, "All right, I've got a couple of places to go," and like people yelling, like, "Hey, you said we had an hour."
Yeah, don't be specific unless you're willing to stick to it.
Exactly. You can say, "Hey, we're going to start at this time. We're going to take questions." I'm with you on that, Al. You don't give an end time. You're like, well, no, you said you're going to do it until 1 o'clock.
Right, or you give an end time, and when they're all milling about not starting on time, you bounce in your hour later, and you're like, hey, I told you an hour. You guys spent the first 35 minutes trying to figure out where your seats were. I had an hour. This is my hour.
Right.
But yeah, certainly don't say an hour and not stay at least an hour, but give it a specific hour. Not I'm going to give you an hour once you start talking.
Yeah. I'm
going to give you an hour from 7 to 8. Go. I'm going to show up at 6:59.
An hour of my time, but it takes me 30 minutes to get there. That's part of my hour time.
Oh, that is a good political answer. I gave you an hour. It took me 20 minutes to get there and 20 minutes to get back home. And I sat in the room for 20 minutes and let you yell at me. That's an hour. Let me check my math skills.
Functionally, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to move off topic. So
Oh no, I was saying functionally, it's not that on the realm of possibility. And when, especially a politician, I mean, you have your days planned out by the hour. So I mean, giving somebody an hour, that transit time does kind of come into play.
Yeah, but they don't. I don't think anybody expects that to be included in it.
Right.
The state of Tennessee passed a bill this week requiring school districts to have a cell phone policy for students.
Yeah,
this comes on. There's another one in play. There's another one in play right now about yonder bags. Have you seen that one?
No.
I don't think that one's in as strong a shape.
I'm curious what it was beforehand. I mean, I guess maybe there wasn't a state law that said that schools had to have a policy. It just seems really weird that we're going to pass a law that says, hey, you have to have a policy, but what that policy is,
I mean,
we still leave that up to that. I think that's the way it's always
policy.
been. Basically, we've allowed the districts to have their own cell phone policies.
Right.
I don't really see what this changes unless there were a handful of schools that just didn't have a policy, which
they could make
which
a policy.
is a policy. It's a policy.
Right.
Not to
a
have
lack
a
of policy is a policy, and or they could make it like they could write a policy that says no phones in schools and not bother enforcing said policy.
All right.
And what's the difference in having a policy that you don't enforce? Yeah. Fuck all.
So the yonder bags, like the little zip up ones that you keep the bags in. Okay.
So the yonder bag, it's a magnet. It's one of those battery magnets. You know that you like you put it on the little thing and it. It's like remember the old like anti-theft things they put on clothes?
Yeah,
it's one of those. Like the top of the bag is that. So you put your phone in, you turn your phone on silent, you put your phone in that bag, you put it on the little thingy, and it locks that thing shut. And so you get to keep your phone, and if it buzzes, you can feel the buzz in it, but you can't get into the bag without going back to the station. And so I feel like it was specifically designed for comedy. Like Rogan and stuff has talked about. He talked about it a lot. He loves them. He thinks it's great. And I don't disagree with it in the premise because you're volunteering that as part of your ticket purchase. You know that you're going and you're not going to be able to have your phone on you. You're not going to be able to use your phone during the show.
Yeah.
In the theater. And so like it's a thing. You go, you get into the venue, you put your phone in the bag, you go take your seat. Like if you have a babysitter and you tell them to call you if there's a problem and your phone starts buzzing in your pocket, you quietly get up and go back out into the foyer and hand it to the person, and they'll pop the bag open, and you see that the babysitter called, and you call back, there's an emergency, you go grab your other that's still watching the show and be like, hey, kid's got problems, we got to go. You still have access to it, but it doesn't interrupt everybody else's show. Also, you can't bootleg some comedian's performance. You can't sit there with your phone and videotape it and then post it on your YouTube and get paid for their performance that they weren't ready to release yet. And so, like, because it doesn't make sense, like, it half makes sense on a concert format, but not as much as comedy. You know what I'm saying?
No, I think even comedy. But
I think it works perfectly. The premise of the Yonder Bag would work well for a concert too. Plenty of musicians and stuff like that. There was that great Prince story when he was trying to get YouTube to take a Radiohead video down because Radiohead did a cover of because Prince had done a cover of a Radiohead song. Remember that one?
Nah, not specific.
There was a video that went out that was Prince doing "Creep" at a concert, and Prince asked YouTube to take it down because it was violating his copyright. And then somebody from Radiohead was like, "Well, it's violating our copyright too. You don't get to call bullshit on you stealing our song and somebody else stealing our song. We are the ones that get to call bullshit." Anyway, like that format makes sense too. And so whoever developed this to the tech to do the Yonder Bags or something like that. But anyway, I hate it as a parent. I think it's inappropriate. I do agree there's problems. And it's one of those, it's the other kid or it's my kid. I don't know. I mean, like I've told my kids, like the rule in Knox County schools is you if you got your phone out when you're not supposed to have your phone out, the teacher takes it. And then I got to come get it. And I told my kids is if I got to come get your phone, it's my phone. It's not your phone anymore. That's with his AirPod. I'm really hoping I get an Apple Watch out of this. Kiddo got an Apple Watch for Christmas. I'm really hoping he gets that one jacked.
That's what I've kind of wondered. I mean, even if you lock up the cell phone,
it still
unless
works.
It's like an RFID blocker, like your watch is still going to work.
Yeah. But I mean, that's actually part of the law is and other wireless devices policy on cell phones and other wireless. But Knox County Schools has it. And it's like, I don't know. It's a weird one. Like I get it because there are kids that don't give a fuck and will sit there and just use their phones in class and other kind of stuff. Like I don't like I bought the kid the Apple Watch for Christmas, but I could get on board if they said he's not allowed to wear it to school. Like, I wouldn't get mad at that one. I mean, that's a goddamn supercomputer on your wrist.
Right.
Go take a test. Okay. You know.
Right.
I would have killed for something like that when I was a kid.
I remember being in middle school and it was some kind of digital watch, but I remember there was kids that could turn on like the TVs and they would turn them off and like kind of fuck with the teachers. It was like a button on a watch that they would act like a remote. You could turn TVs on and off.
I do remember that vaguely.
I mean, you know, that was that long ago, and watches, you know, could send out I guess that's a radio signal? No.
Lasers? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's lasers.
Infrared signal, I guess.
Yeah, something like that. So, I don't know. Like, I would be, as a parent, I would be quite upset if they made the yonder bag thing. Like, I send my kids, I require them, like, the younger one didn't want to take his phone to school. I was like, no, you're taking it with you.
Sounds like a waste of money. I swear I've seen pictures where it's almost like a big like advent calendar. I think I mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
Where it's just like little pockets and the kid's just hanging up in the pocket.
Look, I mean, I don't like it. Like, I don't know. I don't like it. Like, to be with the world we live in nowadays and the crazy shit that can happen, like, get the fuck out of there and call me and I'll come find you wherever you are. Get off campus.
Right.
Don't be there. You know, and like the idea that, like, that, I don't know, maybe somebody's going to pitch it to whoever's trying to pass this bill, but the idea that my kid has his cell phone in his bag and runs off campus because there's a shooting or something like that and can't get a hold of me because he's got his phone in his backpack in some stupid bag that he can't open. And he's freaked out on the side of the road somewhere trying to figure out what to do, doesn't know where he is, doesn't know where his brother is, doesn't know what's going on, and has no means to do anything. That would upset me a lot. I mean, mathematically, statistically, it's probably not going to happen, but still, it's like, that to me is, and I mean, hell, how many cases of school shootings where the first call came from a student in the classroom? They call the 911 or whatever. I know there's been a handful where there's been, like, there was a couple that they released the tape of the 911 call, and it was from a kid in a school that there's a kid down the hall shooting people.
First to call, but I think there definitely have been 911 calls from inside.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just think the yonder bag's a little bit overkill. Although I get the argument that these kids are fucking zombies with those things, and with all the other shit teachers have to deal with, to be like, get off your phone, get off your phone, get off your phone.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It seems like some kind of weird like commercial out. As far as, I don't know if there's only one or two companies that make the yonder bag.
Well, it's an expensive out, whatever it is.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know if it's yonder. And again, to be fair, to back up a second, I don't know if it's yonder brand bag system,
right.
but it's that style. It's become the verb for, it's become the noun for the thing. It's maybe not the brand of, it could be whatever version brand, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I don't know.
That sounds real, especially for rural schools.
Yeah.
Even if I only got a couple hundred students, but a couple hundred of those bags.
Yeah. How many vouchers are they going to not be able to do because they're buying yonder bags for public schools?
All right.
Which could be, you know, I don't know. That could, I don't know. I had that thing cross my head again today, just kind of going down a little bit of the conspiracy rabbit hole. It's like, is there concerted effort to make public schools worse, to push more kids into private school? Because I honestly think that it's not that I do think there's some glad handing and there's some making their friends money and whatever, and that obviously in the voucher bill. But if there's any long-term strategy to it, like if there's any long-term political strategy to the voucher push, it's to homogenize our population. That's the goal. It's the only logical goal you could have. More kids go to faith-based private schools. All the faith-based private schools will likely be Christian private schools, which means you will likely have at least more Christian value-raised adults in a generation, and then repeat that a couple generations from now. Identifies as Christian population goes up. Christians tend to vote more Republican voters, more Republican winners. Like, it's the only thing that makes sense to me if there's any long-term strategy to this, or if it's just simply my buddy at Hillsdale wants to bring his system in, and I want to make him money so he can do it.
I think it may be more so just the generalized idea of privatizing things just automatically makes them better. I think there's truth, I think, in some aspects, but I think there just kind of seems to be this general idea of like, oh, that's costing, the federal government or the state or the county, whoever, lots of money. Like, we'll just save money by privatizing it. I think that kind of goes into the schools of like, oh, grades have been this level, average grades are this, and graduation rates are this, which I think the more recent graduation rates in Knox County had gone up as far as its graduation rates.
Yeah, but if that's the argument, they're spending, quote, the same amount of money. That's with the new funding formula. The voucher is equal to what the state was going to spend on you anyway. So it's not saving money, at least. Now it may be better for the money.
Like, to an extent, I think it will slowly kind of. They say that it's not going to cut funding to public schools. I think there's got to be some kind of weird caveat to where they can get out of not paying as much. I think Jennifer's got it right. I think the hold harmless.
Sorry, the hold harmless is only the first 2 years. So the 25, 26, 26, 27 school years, Knox County will receive the same amount of funding from the state, regardless of how many kids transfer to private schools. Which, again, mathematically, it's only going to be a couple dozen in Knox County that go to private school on the voucher, because the rest of the vouchers that are in Knox County will be kids that are already in private school.
Right, but rightly or wrongly, they can still keep making the argument, hey, this is how much we spend on schools, and
right,
this is our grades haven't gone up. Like, aren't we wasting this money, everybody? Don't you think we can do better by this? I'm just asking questions.
Well, but to finish the thought, though, is the 27 school year will be when the hold harmless goes away, and even if it's only a dozen kids, it's $85,000, give or take, that Knox County schools won't get from the state. Is $85,000 the end of the world for a $600 million budget? Or $60 million budget? No. $600 million budget. Yeah, it's a $600 million school budget. No, it is not going to be it's not a huge, that's a tiny percentage of that total budget. Right. But it's still something. It's what, 0.1%? 0.12, 0.13%, something like that. Wow. That's it's not nothing, and it will theoretically grow over time. And so, anyway, if there is no, I don't know, if there's strategy to it, I can't imagine anything else. If there's no strategy to it, it's more just simple here and now, then I get where you're coming from on it.
Well, you see it at the federal level. I think even just this week, it was talk again about abolishing the Department of Education, but then they weren't. But then I think they're talking about doing it again. I don't quite understand where they're at the federal, I guess, decision on it. It was weird. We just nominated, wrestling corporations.
Yeah, but
CEO.
But at least Trump said, I haven't heard it from her mouth, but at least Trump said, he said, when I told her I wanted her to do this, I told her I wanted her to not have a job in a couple of years.
Oh, okay. They did preface that at some point.
He said it. Now, whether he actually said it to her prior or he thought about it after the fact and said that'd be a cool thing to say, I don't know. Gotcha. But at least, if that's the goal for the Trump administration and she agrees with the philosophy of it, I could see that it being as a you're the head of the Department of Education that finally got it shut down, and you can put that on your hat next to your married to Vince McMahon, and you've done wrestling. I don't know if she's been on. I'm sure she's gotten thrown across the ring or something a time or two. I know he has. God, that man's jacked up. That guy's still jacked up, but he's like 90.
Right.
But anyway.
But I think there's also just kind of that same, I guess, kind of party mentality on the conservative side of this kind of questioning of the state or the federal kind of having any kind of hand in education. And just kind of questioning that aspect of it. Of is this the best way to educate?
Which I think is weird to me personally. If you want to control education and you want to control people, if you want to control the next generation, you do it through education. Why would you pawn that off to a third party when you have direct control over it now? There are certain things the Constitution won't let you do, and maybe that's why they want to get it out of. Maybe that's the goal, is that they can't do the certain things that they want to do because the Constitution is going to make them do stuff, and so that's their real sticking point. But I don't know. If you want to control education, the state schools,
I mean, I've heard like mentioned that there's federal regulations on schools. I can't think of outside of like ADA compliance and kind of like Title IX stuff of what, schools. We'll stick to Tennessee. What schools could do to go against, a federal Department of Education.
Oh, I mean, you've got First Amendment issues with like the teachings of religions and stuff in schools. Like you can't teach a religion as fact in a public school. You could teach about like the history of religions and the way religions have interacted with history, but you can't teach that Jesus is the Son of God and the only way to heaven is through Jesus. That would be a big old violation of federal law in a school system.
Right.
That kind of stuff. I think that's that example specifically that I think the movers and shakers in the state of Tennessee legislature who want to control the schools, that's one of the things that they want to put into the schools, and they know they can't in the public school side, and that's why they're pushing for vouchers. Because again, I think the long strategy here is that you teach more kids about who the right God is, they're more likely to vote for the next generation of our thing the next time around. They're also easier. It's an easier population to handle if they believe in the same core value system. I mean, I think it is. I think that's one of the arguments in some of the Scandinavian countries and stuff like that. It's a more homogeneous population. It's not that it's easier to control per se, but there's a more singular value set among the population than the U.S. population by far. Is that crazy?
I don't see it as cut and dry as that, but I know that as a thought.
You don't see that in trying to govern, especially in a democratic format, that if the core values of the population are closer together, it will be easier to govern. It'll be easier to make policy. Not even in a controlling sort of way. That's not what I mean. But if the value structure of the population is similar, if you want to change a law on a thing, I think like the Australian gun law, when that whole shooting thing went down in Australia and they killed all the guns, I think the population of Australia has a more central value system, and so when they made that law change, it made everybody turn their guns in. That's not going to happen here. We ain't going to the American population doesn't agree on that value, and so they're not going to agree to that law. Where in Australia, where the values are closer together as a nation, it was easier to get that law passed and get participation from the public with it. I'm not saying it in a good. It can be used for good or bad by the government. I'm not saying it has to be a bad use for the government. That's not what I'm meaning. If I put it off that way, I apologize. I just think that I think it's easier to govern. It's easier to govern with a more unified population.
I guess I don't subscribe as much to the idea of this homogeneity of different areas. That never mind.
No, I would like to explore this. I'm curious.
I guess some of the particular areas that are, I guess, kind of talked about as being like homogeneous, I don't quite see them as homogeneous as people, I guess, kind of trying to paint them to be.
Okay.
Especially, I guess, if we looked at like America here, like I've heard some conservative friends kind of talk about the downfall of American culture or whatever. Have our president was talking about the poisoning of the blood or something of America, and kind of even more grotesque terms. But I think even if you look from state to state, you see different cultures.
Yes.
And I guess maybe that's where I kind of miss this kind of like expectation that we are so divided, but it's only because we're a country of immigrants or whatever. When I think even if, states that, we've been around 250, 300 years, you still see kind of differing kind of quote unquote cultures between one state to the next, which I think, for the most part, are similarly populated by some of the same peoples in general areas. You have certain pockets in different parts of the country, but...
Right. I mean, right. But sure. And so, but I guess I didn't... I guess
it wasn't quite in line with what you were talking about.
No, but I guess to react to that would be something along the lines of, yes, Tennessee is a very different place than Texas or California, And the idea, maybe that's the perfection of my example, is that the federal government of the United States has a really hard time trying to govern the population because we have Californians and we have Texans, and they are very different they're very different value sets of people. And that's reflected in their local governments, being their state governments or even their local municipality governments, as compared to the federal government. I think Tennessee is very similar. I think Tennesseans, our state legislature is, through the fun process of gerrymandering and all the other fun stuff that they do over time, I think the state House and Senate is a little bit inaccurately skewed to the right, but I don't think it's inaccurate to say that the majority of Tennesseans, especially voting Tennesseans, would see themselves as Republicans. I think that would be accurate to the population. Now, I think on particular issues they don't agree with Republicans on en masse, i.e. Mr. Briggs last week when I talked to him, i.e. abortion law in the state of Tennessee, those kind of things. I certainly don't think that this legislature is lined up with the population on those things. But when you get right down to it, in the A-B option of voting left or right in the United States political system, I would say a strong 70+%, maybe 80% of Tennesseans would count themselves as Republican. And so that makes it, and I think that is reflected in the way our state makes its laws, is because they feel confident with the strength of their side of the aisle to do some things that in states that are more 50-50 split, it's harder to do those things. And I guess that's the illustration of my point. Like in an Ohio or a Pennsylvania, even in Kentucky right now, which is Beshear still the governor, or did he get?
Yeah.
Okay. Where you have a Democratic governor with a very Republican legislature. You know, it's harder for that. Like Beshear has a really hard time getting anything he wants done in that state, even though he's super popular with the population. The legislature ain't having it. Where a Bill Lee can pretty much do whatever he wants because the legislature is going to back him up because they're all similarly value-setted. And so, to go back to the original point, the state of Tennessee is more homogeneous than the U.S. population at large, and to grow that over time would be a win for.
Where do you get that from?
I would think I haven't looked up the stats, but I would say in the general terminology, like in the top 5 demographics or whatever. I mean, again, like I just said, I think the Republican people who identify as Republican in the state of Tennessee is probably a significant majority.
See, I would even question that.
I mean, at least the percentage that bother to vote, obviously. But I
think especially, I mean, we talk, or we joke about it all the time about, what does the R mean and what does the D mean? I think there's a good number of people out there that are kind of iffy about saying they're one or the other, especially in this kind of like divisive environment that we're in.
But I mean, like, so what do we have? We have 16 Democrats in the state house, I think.
I don't know.
Out of 99, do I think there's more than 16% of the Tennessee population are Democrats? Yes. Do I think it's close to 30? Maybe. Do I think it breaks 35? No. I think it'd be. I think
we've seen it, especially on the national level, there's more kind of this growing kind of people that find themselves more so in the middle.
Sure. I think if we could get a real good survey on Tennesseans, I think if you got a really good survey on Tennesseans, you'd have 20% who identify as Democrats. You'd have 40%, maybe 50% that identify as Republicans, and the rest identify as independent. I would think that's pretty accurate for the Tennessee that I know.
I think you'd get a better response of people on the right side of the aisle if you asked them if they were conservative versus are they a Republican. I think more people would probably say they're more conservative if you asked them in Tennessee.
And I still ask the same question afterwards. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
Because plenty of
I'm going off your presumption.
No, you're right. Right.
That the people would identify as Republican.
It'd be. I'm sure that maybe Vanderbilt's probably done a study. I'm sure.
Possibly.
Yeah, I don't know, but Vandy's got an iffy relationship with the state now. Anyway, speaking of universities in the state and government and stuff, Mr. Boyd came out in a conversation. Finally, went public with some of at least his response to, is he concerned about losing any federal funding? Because any school that teaches DEI or allows, that's my favorite phrase, maybe my favorite phrase of the week, everybody, illegal protests. If a campus is found to be allowing illegal protests, they're going to lose their federal funding.
Allowing illegal protests. Okay.
Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously I suck at the First Amendment.
Did you know that it was illegal, and did you knowingly allow them?
Right. But like, you know, like again, like I'm no constitutional scholar, but I'm pretty sure like the First Amendment is like the right to peaceably assemble. So I don't think there's anything illegal about a protest until you start breaking that peaceably part.
Well, they were the ones last year where I think the UT basically said they could, but they wanted them to be in a certain area.
Right.
And I think that's where it gets into that gray area. Like I think when Bush was president before, there was talk of like, it was like First Amendment zones or whatever, where he came and like did some speeches, but basically like they had to give you a zone to do your quote unquote free speech, but they didn't have to give you, you know.
I mean, I will make the argument that there is that although it is a state school, it is not public property.
Right. I think that was the one they busted up last year.
I would make that argument. It's like the University of Tennessee is a state school. It is state property, but it doesn't, just because it is state property doesn't make it public property.
Yeah. So I think the one last year that Yassine like said he got his arm injured at after he was arrested.
Right. That's because they were on the
right. They basically, I think, said they'd leave by 10 and they remained there afterwards or something like that.
And they were on the lawn in front of the law building. Like to me, if you're on the sidewalk, that's not a crime. That can't be a crime if you're on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
As long as you're letting people who are using the sidewalk get through, you're not stopping, you're not interfering with other people's business. But if you're hanging out on the sidewalk, that's public property. But the lawn is technically university property,
right.
And I will argue that they have the right to manage their property the way they see fit.
Right.
That's an aside argument to the, again, allowing illegal protests as a phrase coming out of the White House is phenomenal to me, and it is not a good it's not a good phenomenal. It is a problem.
I'm a phenomenon.
Like especially when it's the free speech right, full of shit bastards talking shit. It's like, no, guys, that's not how it works. There's no such thing as an illegal protest. There's such thing as a riot, and that's illegal. Permitting for a governing agency to permit a riot and not do anything, I could see that being something that you could maybe lay the hammer on. But I cannot imagine, to save my life, how you would define an illegal protest.
Don't know.
I mean, like it's just like, and so then how do you like? And so, other than I don't like that school because whatever, take their funding away. I don't know how you make that. Like, I don't know how you put a policy in place that has zero parameters other than, well, I don't feel like paying you anymore, so we're not paying you.
Yeah, so I think it was the federal government that basically said they were cutting like $800,000 from Columbia for, I guess, their protests maybe the illegal protests that they allowed last year or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's because they're special, because the definition of anti-Semitism is so goddamn crazy. And somehow anti-Semitism is illegal, even though it still should be free speech, as far as I understand the whole free speech thing.
No.
Like the definition, like that was, yeah. I mean, that's the problem with it, because the Columbia University ones were protests about the war in Gaza.
I believe so, yeah.
And the argument is that, the argument from the Anti-Defamation League or whatever, and APAC, is that criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic, therefore it falls under the hate crime category, therefore it is no longer a legal protest. And it's like, there's a significant difference in being Jewish and being the Israeli government, as far as I'm concerned, but not that's the legal argument in play on that one.
So it's not a funny joke. You should just tell them, hey, just have them go out and show everybody, and their heart's going out to everybody.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It's you can't. It's like making black jokes. You can't be like, my best friend's black. It doesn't work. That doesn't excuse the joke. Yeah. So being mad at Israel, well, my best friend's a Jew, doesn't I mean, there's a dude that's like he's a Jewish, like an actual like from Israel, Jewish professor or something like that who got arrested under U.S. hate crime law for speaking ill of the Israeli government as anti-Semitic. And it's like, this is, how can you be, I don't know, does that work? Is that a possible, like, I mean, there was that great Dave Chappelle sketch of the Black Ku Klux Klan member.
Yeah.
Like, great sketch, but like, is it possible? Can you be anti-Semitic and a Jew at the same time? Is that possible? Can you be Jewish and anti-Semitic?
I mean, I guess anything's possible.
Just, it seems like a bit of a stretch. I don't know.
I mean, definitionally speaking, yes and no.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess. I mean, technically, like you can hate Jews, including yourself. You know, I mean, but as long as, like, if you're calling,
because then you're having a question. What exactly is the definition of a Jew? Is it just a Jewish person,
right?
Or is it?
It
has to be more of referring to someone as being Jewish or Jew. You're kind of assigning them that they're of that religion,
right? It's the only. What's the word I'm looking for? Demographic of people. A demographic that is an ethnicity, a nationality, and a religion.
Not quite a national. I mean, that'd be more Israeli, but depending,
right? But like, I think it's if you
just
are,
because someone's Jewish, it doesn't presume that they are of
correct.
A certain nationality.
But just because but if you are from Israel, you're considered a Jew. I believe is factual.
No,
I think it's factual.
I don't think that's factual at all, because there are many Christians in Israel that would not call themselves Jewish. They would call themselves
Israeli
Christian.
Christian.
Yeah. So sorry, fact, no.
Apologies. It's the only. Sure.
We have three major religions that all call Jerusalem their holy place, or one of their holy places.
Correct. Either way, Israeli, right. It's right. Israeli is the technical nationality, but it's not an ethnicity. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's still it's complicated. I think is the moral of the story here.
A bit,
but I think I could differentiate the two. I can differentiate the government of Israel from the people of Israel and from the people whom are of Jewish faith.
Yeah. That's generally the arguments made.
Those are different things to me, and to argue against the government has nothing necessarily to do with the people.
All right. I think that's the argument they were making in the protest, that we weren't
right.
They weren't protesting the Israelis. Period. It was the Israeli government.
But as the policy of the Biden White House, his Department of fucking legal department. I've done this like 10 times this week.
Department of Justice.
Yes, Department of Justice. Thank you. The definition of anti-Semitism includes the government of Israel. To talk poorly about the government of Israel.
There's some countries that,
because the argument is that by undermining what the government of Israel is doing, you're opening the doors to the destruction of Israel, which therefore is the destruction of the Jewish people. That's the argument.
I'd be curious to read the fine print on that. It's interesting.
I mean, yeah, it is.
I was going to say that we enjoy much more free speech in this country than other countries. Other countries, I think it is against like their free speech laws to question the government or question the leader.
Yeah, which is
or speak ill of in many cases.
Which is why
you question us? Oh no, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Right. Which is why, as much as I'm not a big fan of it, I didn't get mad. Like I can't get mad on a free speech standard of anybody who was mad that when the was it Kyle Gass from Tenacious D? Did you hear that story? This is a while ago.
Oh yeah, vaguely. I don't remember much.
At a concert or something, he said you had one job, motherfucker. Don't miss. And that was in reference to the guy that shot at Trump.
Yeah.
Shitty thing to say.
You made some kind of joke, and I can't remember what it was. Yeah, now I remember.
Terrible, shitty thing to say or whatever, but
yeah,
you could suffer in the public sphere. People don't want to go see your show anymore because of things you say like that or whatever. But I will argue to death that you should be able to say that. You should absolutely be able to say that. Any legally any law that goes against that is scary.
Make comedy legal, man.
Yeah. Indeed. Anyway, that was the Boyd on funding block. We still don't know what's going on with the bridge, whether the bridge is getting funded or not. I did hear this week that the go ahead.
I saw some a couple days ago. I thought we got some kind of money to open Gay Street Bridge back up for pedestrian.
Different bridge, yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, they're in the city's doing their budget.
Sorry, you're talking UT Bridge.
Yeah, city's doing their budget hearing right now. The stupid footbridge they're building on campus is the one I was referencing. But they don't know if that money's coming or not. As far as everybody that I've talked to or anybody that knows anything, they're just moving ahead with the process. And when they get to figuring out how to pay for it, they'll deal with it later.
Well, we got a bridge, and we kind of owe some people some money. So,
well, I mean, as of right now, there's no, they haven't been told they're not getting the money. So, what else are you supposed to do? You don't pause waiting for a decision on something that we weren't told is, the people giving you the money didn't say, stop, we're not giving you the money.
Yeah, but they've never said we're going to give you the money.
Sure. Well, no, they did. Biden's White House did. They approved the grant.
Right.
And so, as of right now, the grant hasn't been pulled officially, and so they just move forward. Now, on the other bridge thing, but they're also trying to figure out if they can get it to a point where they can get buses on it, but not cars. They want to have the bus route still run over into Sevier Avenue through there, which I don't disagree with per se.
I was actually thinking about that earlier today when I saw it was opening back up. I wonder if there could be some kind of like small shuttle service, but there's not really a parking lot kind of on that side of Gay Street right there by the city county building. Yeah, big enough to where you could kind of have like a park and ride lot.
No, but you've got the station proper.
You're
talking about Sevier. Well, I mean, there's enough people that live down in the Sevier Avenue area that could walk to.
I'm talking about on the, I guess, this side of the river, of that bridge.
The north side of the river?
Yeah.
Well, you got the terminal, the bus terminal right there behind the First Tennessee building. That's where that route would go, and you'd get off there and either get on another bus to go somewhere else, or you'd get off there and go into downtown.
Yeah. I was thinking of like a separate, just like small shuttle, not part of the CAT system.
Yeah. Apparently, they're trying to do a park and ride from Sevier for baseball, which smoothly transitioned to my next topic of the Tennessee Smokies have put out their promotions calendar, which is awesome. Let me find it real quick. Where is it? So many text messages, so many people.
Just tell me what night Jelly Roll bobblehead night is.
So from blanknews.com, the Knoxville Smokies. This is a link actually from Blank News to the Smokies website. Opening night is 4/15, so we're 5 weeks out, give or take. Fireworks every night for the first 5 games. So if you're a downtown resident, no sleep for you, suckers. Your dogs are going to be pissed. Opening night's got some cool stuff. You get to they're doing a special version of the tickets. So it's a commemorative ticket for first night, so you can take your ticket home and frame it, and be like the first ever game in the new Smokies Park. I was there. I do think I'm gonna lean on Scott and Jesse at the Compass and see if I can get a press pass and go as press. But jersey giveaway, all sorts of different stuff going on. Star Wars night.
I've never heard of a Peanuts night.
Yeah, apparently they're doing a special version of the jersey. That's actually against my Hollaroo, so peanuts suck. We're trying to figure that out. You got any thoughts? We want to sub-theme our event as anti-peanuts as possible. First thing I came up with was elephants. Elephants eat peanuts.
Right.
We could do a Lucy show. We could do a Lucy competition. That'd be funny. The field goal thing.
All right.
Where we get couples to come see who can do the best psych field goal attempt.
Might have to up your insurance on that.
I was thinking that, or I was thinking we would do a bunch of marketing that says free peanuts, and we just go and buy a bunch of peanuts and do it for like anybody that comes can just have a station where you can come get free peanuts as a way to battle that. But the bonus is probably have fireworks, and for the way we're doing the stage setup this time, we should have fireworks in the background while this concert's going on.
I don't know, my initial thoughts on it was people would not get the reference, depending on how much this Peanuts night is actually advertised, that people would have to know that this was even going on. And know that it was Peanuts night.
Oh, they're going 8. Like, it's going to be big. Like, it's this spring in Knoxville, special events and all the kind of stuff that's going on around the stadium and around the different stuff going on. So, like, this weekend, tomorrow.
Games, but maybe not necessarily, I guess, events nights.
Later tonight, or later today, for those of you who are listening on the release day, if you want to go down to the Old City right now, the Old City Central is closed down from Jackson to Willow, I believe is the street name. That's basically... that's that one block on the south side. So Jackson and Central is the intersection of the Old City, right? And so the block that goes towards the city of Knoxville, towards downtown from there, is going to be closed to traffic. And they're going to have it's Knox One's preseason bash. So all the players are supposed to be out there hanging out, signing autographs, doing that kind of stuff.
All right.
Open container, so if you want to walk around the Old City with a drink, time is now. And so that's going on, and so you got soccer games and all their schedules going on. We talked about the field changes that they're doing for the soccer games versus the baseball field. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Earthadelic, I got texts from people. I got 2 texts from 2 different people being like, "Hey, it's Earthadelic, you idiot!" And it's like, "Yeah, we get there. Hold on a second. You got to keep listening. We'll get there eventually." But I did get some text trying to get somebody to help us out to get to the name we couldn't think of at the time. But that one's happening. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on in the city of Knoxville, in and around on the stadium. I've been looking for, and I've got a buddy who may be on the concert team for booking concerts for the stadium, which I don't know if I should say this. I'm not telling you who the buddy is or if there's any validity to his want, but he wants to have Snoop Dogg as his first booking there.
Good luck. It's possible, but
I mean, I would think Snoop's a little too big for. I don't know what they're like. The stadium is 7,500, and in the concert setup, I haven't seen any numbers on what the concert setup's going to look like on how many it'll seat, but it's probably 15,000. Snoop would do a $15,000 seat show. Get Martha Stewart there. It's a win for everybody.
It's not out of the realm of possibility.
I would go. I told him, I was like, man, if you pull that one off, I'm working. Whatever you need me to do, I'm working.
Right.
And I'll work. I'm not going to just skip doing whatever the job is to watch the concert. But like, I'm absolutely whatever you need, I'm working. I'll work at the bar. I'll work security. I'll do some backstage stuff. Whatever you want, I'm there. I'm there, and to be fair to him, I'm there for anything he wants to do. Anybody he wants to bring in there, I'm there for it. But the Snoop one, I'm there. He might need an extra person, and I'll just charge him less for my time. But I don't know. There's some cool stuff. I mean, it's standard minor league sports stuff. You've got Star Wars night, Peanuts night, Harry Potter night, Margaritaville. That's funny.
It's the second one down from the top right, Smokey's version night.
Yeah, I don't understand that. With friendship bracelet giveaway. Huh. So they're doing friendship bracelets, but I don't know what version is. Did you see the Margaritaville one?
I did.
See who it's presented by?
Nope.
Casey's. I guess that's not the Boyd family anymore. Casey's is a different brand, but I find that kind of interesting because Casey's bought all the Boyd pilot. No, that's Haslam. Right. Sorry, I'm mixing families up.
Yeah.
I'm mixing families. My bad. That's the Haslam family. And it's not even the Haslam family.
It looks like
anymore.
The same logo as like the restaurant Margaritaville. So I wonder if it's. I would think that logo and font and everything.
It's got the trademark there at the end of the E.
Okay, yeah.
So it's definitely branded. MVP Matt Shaw bobblehead giveaway. I guess he's a player from last year. Racing nights. You get some Hot Wheels cars. Kids get some Hot Wheels cars.
How far can you push it on the flat field?
I'm interested. I'm actually interested about the last one on there. 8/23 is Tennessee night, and it's orange and white. And I'm trying to think of when the football schedule starts. And I'd be really interested to see,
like the day before or something.
When that lines up with opening night for, how that lines up with the first home game. That answers my question. The The first UT game is at Syracuse on August 30th, so that's the weekend after. So it's the last game of the year, the weekend before football starts, but 2 weeks before we have East Tennessee State in Knoxville.
Well, is that the last game of the year? That might just be the last.
That's the last. That's the last theme night.
Theme night, right?
That's a good question. Good point.
I'd say I was like, that's not a football schedule. You only get 15 games.
Yeah, but it's usually like a lot of those nights are weekends. Let's see here. Come on now. June, July, August. Oh, do they go into September? They do go into September. That means that we have the Biloxi whatever the fucks. Is that right? August? No. We are at Montgomery for the final week of the season. No, wait, what did I just say? Damn it. UT plays East Tennessee State in Knoxville on September 6th. The Knoxville Smokies are playing the Rocket City whatever the fucks in Knoxville on Saturday the 6th, the second to last home game of the year. That's going to be a shitty weekend to be downtown, people. Uber, I might get my Uber license. I might start driving Ubers for that shit. That's going to be a high dollar day for Uber drivers.
I mean, you probably get a couple like high dollar fares, but at the same time, you're not going to make it back down.
Yeah, but they do
surge pricing and stuff.
Right, they do surge pricing. So,
but you're still stuck in that same traffic because, like I said, you may get a couple big booming fares, but you're still crawling to get them wherever the hell they need to go. And if you want to try to crawl back down there to pick up another one,
yeah, but you get that surge pricing. You only have to do 2 fares a day and make a good day out of it.
Possibly, yeah.
You know, it depends on what time the football game is because we don't know. The baseball game's at 7 p.m. We don't know what time we won't know what time the football game is until much closer to date.
Right.
If we have an 8:30 or if we have a 7:30 kickoff, we won't have a 7. We might because it's hot. We might have a 7:30 kickoff and a 7 o'clock first pitch. That will be nuts. American Cannon, you better figure out some parking quick because that's going to be a shit show.
Good luck.
Yeah. I'm excited. That's fun. That's real fun. I like it. That makes me happy. That makes me tingle in fun ways. And it's also fan appreciation night, and it's not listed on the other schedule that we were looking at. 9. The final home game is fan appreciation night, whatever that means.
It's just where they say thank you.
Yeah, but they have it marked on their calendar as a promotion, but it's not on their promotions calendar is all I was trying to say. So
that's their last home game to quote unquote say thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Did they do playoff baseball in minor leagues?
No idea. You would assume there's some kind of playoffs, but maybe not.
I would bet there is. So if there's some playoffs, we go longer than that. That's a problem. That'll be a problem if they have multiple. If they're a playoff, if their playoff baseball presumably brings out a few more fans than regular baseball. I would think, even if it's minor leagues.
I mean, now they're going to have to compete with UT baseball games too.
Yeah,
since we're ever popular now in that,
we are. But I mean, but I think Lindsey Nelson's only like 5,000 fans.
I don't know how big it is. I think
they're rebuilding it.
Yeah, I was about to say they're rebuilding or adding on to it.
Yeah, I know they're rebuilding it or whatever, but I think it is not particularly large currently.
Right.
But the Smoky Stadium's, like I said, 7,500, so that's not very big either, when compared to the 110 or whatever that are going to be down the street at Nayland.
Right.
This is gonna be crazy. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited. I do. I want to get a bus. I want to do my water taxi. That's the one. For all my Sevier Avenue friends, I want to do a booze cruise from Suttree Landing Park to what's the one on the
Ball Landing?
To Volunteer Landing. Just put you on a little pontoon boat with some.
Yeah, but if the Ball Navy's there, you may not be able to get close to anything to let anybody off.
You just strap up to the last boat, and everybody walks across everybody else's boat. That's how the Vol Navy works.
Sure.
You strap up to the boat next to you, and you just move across the boats.
Right, but you're not strapping up to them to party with them. You're like, hey, I got to drop these people off and let them walk all over your boats while I go pick up some more people and bring back another 50 people to walk through your boats again.
I'd be curious. It'd be something to work out. I mean, who owns the dock down there that's up closer to the...
Calhoun owns one of them, but I'm not really sure about the other ones.
The one that's further up.
I'm not sure.
Like, is that a city? Does the city own that launch? Because like Suttree Landing Park has a kayak launch and stuff like that. That's city property.
Not sure.
I'm going to have to ask some questions. I know the people that ask these questions.
I would guess city property.
Because
that's a big kind of like underpass. Because I know when they had the Bass Classic here, that's where all the people were letting out at.
Right,
that's all the boats were putting in.
Right, that's where they launch. But I mean, the dock where the Star of Tennessee or whatever, the paddle boat that's down there, the big whatever, that's where it launches from. My friend that got married on whatever other boat that's down there, their reception was on one of those boats.
Yeah.
The Star of Tennessee, I think is what it's called. The reception was on there, which sucked. Not it. It was just not like that was the craziest weekend. We had that wedding on Friday, and then we flew to New York and went to another wedding on Saturday. And so we're stuck on a boat, knowing that our flight's in like an hour and a half, and the boat's supposed to be back on shore in 45 minutes, but we have to get there, get to our car, get to the airport, get checked in, do that whole thing, and get on a plane. And it worked, and it was fine. The New York side was the second part of that whole weekend, but it worked. It was also at a wedding that you knew that it was going to end in a divorce. That was also not my favorite. Like have you been to one of those where you go to a wedding and you know they're going to get divorced?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was that was just a thing. It was. So, anyway, that's I think I covered a lot of what I wanted to cover. Apparently, the U.S. Department of Energy Secretary Trump's selection was in Oak Ridge.
Yeah, I think last week.
Talking about the importance of Oak Ridge and the computing technology of the second fastest supercomputer in the world that we have up here in Oak Ridge. Mm-hmm. And apparently all they care about is AI, which I'm scared to death of. I'm really scared right now.
Well, I read a couple times that there was basically like once they got that up and running, once they got it up and running, it was going to take, I want to say it was like a couple months to get up to its performance level of what it's meant to.
The supercomputer?
Yeah, the supercomputer. But there was basically like a waiting list of all these different, data scientists, et cetera, that basically had these equations and stuff that wanted to be fed into this machine to give them more information.
They take hours or weeks to run through it.
Right.
And it's the fastest computer by like a 10 million, like some Google, whatever. But apparently one of the
things...
able
to run constant simulations. It's done a lot in weather and stuff where you can put in different, barometric pressures and et cetera. And,
it's been doing a lot of climate modeling is one of the things, and that's one of the things that was in question. It's like, well, if you're not really a climate person, if you don't really believe in climate change, are you going to let us keep using this giant computer for climate modeling? Well, we really think AI is where it's at, so we love what you're doing here. So
I almost think he came in to talk about the modular reactors, but that may have been another part.
Man, I hope so. Those are where it's at. But I mean, I guess I made this joke on Scott earlier today. It's like, I guess when we don't have to really worry about the climate apocalypse when the Terminator apocalypse is going to happen first.
Yeah,
I mean I kind of I've never been a huge I'm not a climate denier. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. I believe in global warming and all that kind of stuff. But I've never been a huge proponent of going real hard at recycling and stuff like that's going to fix anything. But now it doesn't matter. I think the computers are going to kill us all before we kill ourselves with the environment.
I remember it was a Breaking Points clip either earlier this week or last week where they had found a clip of that somebody basically had two telephones using AI. And I think it was trying to make a hotel reservation. But the AI actually was able to figure out that it was talking to an AI. And they literally changed to a different, binary code to whatever to speak more quickly to each other.
Yeah, dude, I'm not, I don't know.
Or you're talking and it's like, oh, I'm an AI assistant. How can I help you? It's like, oh, I'm AI too.
That's great. More.
Would you like to switch to, blah, blah, blah? And it's like, sure. And I start making different clicks and whistles and noises. Where it was basically, I guess, it had the little subtitles at the bottom or whatever that I'm assuming were accurate. But it was basically okay, how many people in your party, blah, blah, blah. Are there any accommodations, blah, blah, blah. where it was AI, like figuring out that it was AI and figuring a way to talk to each other more quickly.
Right, which it makes sense. It's the logical conclusion of the task it's asked to perform. Right. It was asked to perform the task of getting a reservation. It was asked for the task of taking a reservation.
Right. We've already run into many cases of, when it kind of goes outside of its parameters.
Yeah.
When it starts making things up, basically. When it's like, oh, I don't know the answer. I'm going to give you an answer that I think is the right answer.
That's that new Will Ferrell and Reese Witherspoon movie, basically.
Oh,
it's actually a human being that takes the reservations wrong, and they double book a wedding in a single wedding venue.
Seen the preview.
I like me some Reese Witherspoon. Will Ferrell's hit and miss for me. Like there's like a volume of Will Ferrell before I can't handle him anymore. Like
some of his stuff I haven't cared for, but like the majority of his stuff.
His super spasticness, his super spasticness is great, but if that's all the movie is, I can't handle it.
Right. Like I wasn't the biggest fan of him when he was on SNL for a lot of his skits and stuff.
Like old school,
someone was like over the top.
Old school was where it was at. Like old school was
great.
He was one of like four main characters. He wasn't I would say he stole the movie. Like he's the most memorable character out of the movie. But if had he been the only character, it would have been a terrible movie.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like his character in the movie was great, but if he was the only character in the movie, it would have been a fucking awful movie. Vince Vaughn was great in that. Who else was in it? There's plenty of people. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'm scared to death. I think we're going to get killed by our computers very soon. Like but before the end of Trump's term. I think
killed by them. I think they're just going to fuck up a bunch of shit.
I don't know.
I'm going to take over all your banking decisions for you because you seem to be making some poor economic choices. So I'm not going to.
Yeah, you can't buy this. You can't buy that.
The old. They could have joked about it. Did the thing in Space Odyssey or whatever. Like how? We're basically like, oh, I'm not going to let you do that.
Right. I was just saying, like the logical, like all the different sci-fi movies that have done AI stuff. It's all that's like it's the logical conclusion. Like, what was the one with Will Smith?
AI?
Was that AI?
I think he was in a movie called AI.
Yeah, then maybe that's one. So with the little face, like, because he's a cop.
Yeah, I think that is AI.
Like it's like the laws of robotics, which some dude made up in a sci-fi story in the 40s, which seem to be the same kind of rules that we want to put in place for AI. It's like the whole point of that movie is that the laws of robotics come to the conclusion of humans suck and they're terrible at doing things, so we're just going to put them in a box. We'll keep them alive, but we're just going to put them in a box for their own good.
Yeah.
And it's like
humans are too emotional.
Right? Because the logical conclusion being that it's like, well, I don't know. I guess that's how you write the rules. The rule being, are you is being alive enough for being a human? And it's from the computer's perspective. That's the premise. I think that's important. Is you're not dead. Then I've succeeded as a computer. Everything else is irrelevant to the computer because it doesn't understand what a meaningful life is or whatever.
I mean, some of the constraints of it are, the coding that we put into it. That I can't remember like the phrase for it, but I've heard it kind of in like drone technology, basically. And kind of what we would be afraid of is basically a drone that has the technology to detect a threat and take action on its own, basically. Where right now we have, like drone operators that have the 3D goggles and et cetera that are doing it hundreds and thousands of miles away by manning the drone. Where the next step in that kind of drone technology in the field basically is having drones or AI that can interpret and doesn't have to have that connection to an actual like person or whatever, making the decision for whatever action you're having.
Like I truly don't believe in the Terminator. Like I don't think the Terminator is going to be the one that does it. I don't think you're going to make some humanoid robot. I don't think that makes any sense. It's illogical.
Well, we have them out there.
I mean, yeah. Like I think the dog, the Boston Dynamics dog, that one scares me. That one might be what comes to my door and kills me.
They've weaponized them.
Right. I just don't think it's going to be humanoid, and I'm certainly don't think it's going to have some advanced technology to look like a human physically.
But sorry, go ahead.
But I just think it's like that's. Yeah, I mean, because I don't know, like logically speaking, from this perspective of like if you're Chief Noel, if like because they're already trying to push in what I consider like intrusive and surveillance technology and stuff like that into the KPD system. How long until Chief Noel or whoever the next chief of KPD is like, we have some unmanned cruisers that can go do different things, and we get unmanned this, and we have unmanned that, and we have AI versions doing this and that. Like how from an administrator standpoint in policing, like how it doesn't seem like that big a leap. Like if that's if you have a bunch of parameters you're trying to fill as the police chief, if this computer tech can do it in a way that's cheaper than having 7 officers do it, not to mention you don't have to put any of those officers in the line of fire or anything like that. So it's monetarily cheaper and human life cheaper.
Right.
It makes total sense that you would buy into that kind of thing. And so it's like, how long until like there's nobody at KPD anymore and it's all computers and
even though you would still have to have a tech and like a mechanic of sorts, an electrician.
I don't think so. How long until like, I mean, that's the thing that scares me about AI most is like when it starts fixing itself, both physically and digitally.
It seems to be impossible. Yep. It's funny you were talking about like the driverless police officers. I don't think I've ever watched a clip, but I've seen a couple like pop up about police officers pulling over, I guess in San Francisco or wherever, where they have driverless cars. But a police officer actually pulling over a driverless car and kind of going up and you're like, what the fuck? There's nobody in this car.
All right.
Like, oh, shit.
Who gets the ticket?
I think the company, I'm not sure what it was they were getting pulled over for, if it was, not coming to a complete stop or not signaling.
I mean, I'm just saying, like that's another one that's going to take decades of figuring out laws to make up to correct those things.
But I know one issue that they've seen with AI in the past couple years, and I think it's a lot of people hadn't thought of, and kind of going back to what I was saying with the kind of constraints of AI into being like programming that you put into it, where I believe it's just Tesla that has kind of like the automated driving and where it's supposed to sense other people. But they basically had to wonder, like, essentially the trolley problem of, what will this car do if, it's trying to avoid an accident and it detects, one person on the sidewalk here and 3 people on the other sidewalk. Like, do we have programming in there that says, hey, yeah, sure, kill 1 person versus 3 people?
Right. Is the one person,
or will it just try to avoid the car accident? And it's kind of like, what are these quote unquote automated systems going to do in these situations?
Yep. What if the 1 person is pregnant?
Right.
What if the 3 people are old?
Right.
How do you make that decision?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. It's right, because I don't know that you can program morality. Not that because there's already not an easy moral answer to that question.
Right.
And so you take a moral
logical fallacy. Yeah.
You take a moral paradox and try to put an immoral character in play, and what does it do?
Yeah. Hey, Joey, I need you to write a code that tells our car what to do.
The logical answer is what I think the logical answer is like, how do you program what are you programming as harm? Right. So how do you program harm into the system? Like, do the least harm.
Right.
Like if that's the phrasing, well, the least harm is you kill the 1 person. It's a pretty simple answer.
Right.
If the sensors say there's 3 people here, there's a car full of people that you're going to hit, or there's 1 person there, it's a simple answer. If it's to do minimal harm,
you've got 4 people in the car and 1 person on the sidewalk. Will it take self-preservation over that? Or?
Right. The 1 person on the sidewalk is going to do less damage to the people in the vehicle.
Right.
In itself, right? It's going to leave the smallest bump or dent on my hood.
I'm going to say, but we're safe in here, and I'm safe in my car.
Yeah, it's not like it's frightening for a lot of reasons. I don't.
It worried me more when I think it was like last year or whatever that a couple like the leading like AI technology people, even they were like, "Hey, we need to start like looking at this because if we don't start exploring, like, this could kind of spiral quicker than we realize."
But dude, that came to the thing. It's like we're in an AI arms race.
Right.
With who? There's answers. China is an easy one, but to what end? Like that's and maybe that's self-evident in the statement. Like an arms race is literally just an arms race. Like,
I mean, to an extent, the arms race is also an information race. I mean, you've seen it in some of the AIs where I can't remember, it was one of the major ones. I think like the New York Times and other kind of like kind of major news outlets, et cetera, were suing AI companies for basically taking the treasure trove of language, basically,
right,
and feeding it into a self-learning system, right?
Right. That's another part of it too. Is like that's if the system is basically just writing as you, and it's accurate to how you would have written a story, is that you were the computer. You didn't actually write it, but neither did it really, technically,
right?
Theoretically.
But I mean, it's only as smart as the information that you give it. So basically, if you're feeding a treasure trove of information to that AI, you're going to have one of the leading AIs.
Well, but I think that's the point of the supercomputer conversation, is its ability to go and just take everything that's available online, which is everything, which is why AI ends up being racist, because there's so much racism online. I mean, that's. I think it's true, but I mean,
that's what I kind of wondered how much of that was also like reading into the plethora of like bot profiles.
Sure.
Of how much of that was thrown off the system.
Right. Absolutely. Because it doesn't know the difference. It might, but I doubt it. It doesn't know the difference if it's a real person that wrote it or a bot that wrote it.
Right. I think it's just looking at prevalence of a particular quote or word.
Well, it's like, like in Facebook Messenger, which you quit, which we've had conversations about, but Facebook Messenger has a thing where if I start typing, it'll start doing AI. My Apple text thing's doing it now too.
Yeah.
That's not predictive text anymore. It's like somebody texts me something and it's giving me possible responses.
Huh. I don't think I've seen that yet.
Yeah, it's a new thing. It's a new thing in some of my stuff. Microsoft's got a whole bunch of stuff in their system now where I could take, I just open a blank Word document, and I'll show you. I don't know how to describe it other than
I've seen examples of it. You don't have to point it out to me.
Well, I don't know what I don't know what it's called. I want to use the right words.
Okay. Grammarly.
Copilot.
Okay. I want to say Grammarly is a popular one that I think that's what I'm seeing commercials for, that I think I mentioned to you about two, I guess, kind of opposing office mates that were sending back emails or whatever to each other, and the AI kind of kept softening the messaging to it or to each other.
Right.
Instead of per my last email, it finds better constructed a positive way to interact with your.
So I just told my Word Copilot AI to write me a monologue on AI. Now, I didn't tell it to write it in my voice. It does give me a disclaimer. AI-generated content may be incorrect. Perfect. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is a fascinating and rapidly evolving field that has the potential to transform our world in countless ways. Imagine a world where machines can think, learn, and adapt just like humans. Not my favorite. This is the promise of AI, a technology that is already making significant strides in various domains, such as healthcare, finance, transportation, and entertainment. It goes on for 7 more paragraphs. That's all I wanted to read. Yeah. In conclusion, AI represents a new frontier in technology, one that holds immense promise and potential. It challenges us to rethink what it means to be intelligent and to explore new ways of interacting with the world around us.
It's just what an AI would say.
Yeah. I'm going to ask it to give me a monologue on the dangers.
Not applicable. You have nothing to fear, mortal human.
Artificial intelligence, or AI, is a powerful and transformable technology, but it also comes with significant risks and dangers that we must carefully consider. As we continue to develop and integrate AI into various aspects of our lives, it is crucial to be aware of the potential pitfalls. One of the primary concerns with AI is the potential for job displacement. Yeah, that is true. Way to go. But yeah, legitimately, if this was a solo show where I'm just talking at the audience instead of talking with you to the audience, I could just do that all day. I could just do random prompts. And the more depending on what the generator is, I don't know if Copilot would be very great. There's other ones that would be better. But it'd be hey, help me talk about give me the benefits of Senate Bill, Senate Bill 1272 in the Tennessee House 2025.
Right.
And I could do a monologue on it that I don't put any thought into at all, but it has at least potentially pertinent details, although it does caption, this may be incorrect.
Did you see the covenant marriage bill that's going through the State House? Or have you heard of a covenant marriage?
No, please tell me about it.
First I'd ever heard of it. I had to read it a couple times. I was trying to make sure that this wasn't going to change, I guess the actual, what defines a marriage in the state of Tennessee. But this is apparently something kind of additional that you can kind of add in. I think that you apply for it, and I think they're even adding in a $2,500 like rebate basically for signing up for a covenant marriage, but there's a relatively short list of things to actually to annul a covenant marriage. And I think it has to do with basically any kind of emotional, physical violence. I think infidelity. There's a few different things, but basically
it's an undivorceable marriage short of except for a short list of things. Is that what I'm understanding?
Kinda, yeah.
So you get a tax rebate from Tennessee?
Yeah, from the state.
What do you get a tax rebate on?
I don't know if it just goes to your federal. I don't know if they really talked about that exactly.
Okay.
I don't think they just give you a $2,500 check, so I'm assuming it's some kind of rebate in a form.
Anyway, yeah, that's kind of an irrelevant part. I apologize. It's not irrelevant, but I did unimportant.
I just thought it was odd they're even incentivizing it. I guess it was kind of goes to again what you were saying last week of who's asking for this.
Well,
I saw that.
Forget
other
who's
states
asking for it.
Are talking about it.
It goes back to the other thing I was talking about earlier. Is that this would be a bill that would be super easy to pass if the majority of your population was strongly Christian or strongly religious of some sort that believed in the sanctity of marriage and all that kind of crap. It'd be an easy bill to pass, and it makes total sense. And it's an incentive, not even an incentive. It's a bonus for people that believe like you. Is essentially what this bill is to me. Here's a bonus if you believe marriage is what we believe marriage is. Here's a bonus.
I mean, I guess I don't really pick up the religiosity of it as much. I think it's trying to decrease divorce rates, and I guess incentivize people to go into a marriage that are less likely to get divorced.
I mean, and it could cheapen it could help reduce the cost of the court system and all that kind of crap that they've got to do when they got to deal with it's not cheap to have a judge and all the different people that are involved in doing the process. And so by reducing the availability basically of getting a divorce,
it's basically they cut out no-fault divorce. And I want to say I paid $300. It's not cheap, I guess, but it's not thousands of dollars. But again, that was a no-fault where amicable. Right, but you're not getting lawyers involved.
You do this particular subdivision of divorce or of marriage, you take out a bunch of options for divorce, which means the likelihood of that marriage ending in divorce is lower, which means the likelihood of the court system having to see your divorce is lower.
I think just because you're giving less outs is going to decrease the chances of divorce. I guess legally it decreases the chances of divorce.
Well, I mean, I think again, depending on the totality of the list of approvals, it's if there's an assault that goes with it, you have a separate crime that you get to that the state gets to get out of it too. So it's you're using the court system. You're doubling up on the use of the court system at the same time on that one. No, I don't know. I got to think about this one a little bit. No, I mean, I could get the premise of that rebate being offset by the lack of costs for divorce hearings over time.
I mean, I guess administratively it kind of costs, but I mean, if they're not recouping their cost by, what it costs you to pay to get a divorce, then that's shit on the state for setting up a subsidized payment for divorce.
But, I mean,
to then try to do an end round of, hey, let's pass a law that's going to maybe save us money. I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I do. I follow. Okay. I don't know. Like I said, I put spot
it's the only weird thing, and I've seen it pop up in other states
back
too.
To your first.
That's why I kind of wonder about some legislation. If it's when we kind of wonder, where's this coming from? That
some of that Christian.
A good bit. It's National Party kind of trying to filter out to states as well.
I mean, it's some Christian nationalism at play. I mean, it just is. I can't. I mean, it's got to be.
Maybe I don't.
I mean, not in like the. It's the people that say the United States is a Christian nation. It's those people that are putting stuff like this together. They're incentivizing people that think like them, people that go into a marriage thinking that there is no excuse for a divorce, even if you don't like each other anymore. It has to be in extreme measures for you to separate from that person. We're going to give you a bonus. It's encouraging people to think like they think.
I had to read through the article a couple times. I was like, wait, is this changing what what defines a marriage? Like all of a sudden, like when you get a marriage now, it's now automatically a covenant marriage. And I was like, okay, well, it's something that you can optionally add to your marriage or whatever.
Right, but I guess like, the argument too would be the inverse being, I don't even know if there is. Like, are there actually any tax advantages left to being married versus being single?
No, you're asking the wrong person.
Yeah. I could talk to my accountant about it. Just a
little bit of time I was married, we filed taxes separately because I think it saved us money.
Right, married filing separately, married filing jointly. Like I think it like situationally it can be a bonus or a
depends on the situation.
Right. Like that's the thing to me about like the whole argument about marriage. It's like, well, I could see it on a national interest level. Like on a national, it's just like on a not our national interest, just as a government caring about its own future. Like the science is pretty clear. The studies have been made. Like 2-parent households, the children come out more well equipped to handle the rest of their lives. They're more likely to have a 2-parent to be half of a 2-parent household for the next generation, and so on and so forth. Like it's a net good generationally to have better marriages. Like that's a statable fact historically, and so to encourage that as a government makes sense. But inversely, it's like what is like two people hanging out and spending all their time together? What's the government matter in that conversation? Why does the government need to even have a part of that conversation?
I don't remember what comedian it was, but made a joke about gay marriage. It was like they have every right to be just as miserable as everybody else.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Like, but I mean, just on the on a purely governmental level, which is why I could make I can understand the governmental continuation of the nation argument against gay marriage. Like, I could get that argument. I think it's irrelevant. I think it's unimportant. But I could I could get the argument.
What is the argument? I don't get it.
Okay, again, so the United States doesn't exist if we don't have another generation behind it.
Right.
Don't fucking ask me a question and then roll your eyes at me and an answer.
Well, that just comes off as your leading statement is a very obvious statement.
Okay, gay couples can't have kids on their own.
Okay, how not?
Because 2 dudes can't fucking have a child. 2 girls can't fucking have a kid. Now, you can bring in other things. Yes, the science is there to make more kids that way. But on a very basic level, a gay couple can't have their own kid.
They can have their own biological children.
No, they can't.
They can have their own biological...
They can have a half-child.
In the male case, yes.
Or in the female case. They can have a half-child where one of their DNA continues with some stranger's DNA added to the mix to make a kid. But they, in and of themselves, cannot create another life.
Okay, but them as a couple could have a child?
They could adopt a child. They could do some in vitro fertilization or something like that. Yes.
Okay. So they can or they cannot?
They cannot have a kid on their own. No.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
I thought you just said IVF they can.
They cannot have a child on their own between the 2 of them with their DNA.
True, with just the 2 of them without science.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Now, yes, it is possible to do things with science that people people can create another generation without. I mean, not really. They still have to use another DNA sample, whatever. Doesn't matter. On a governmental level where you need another generation, especially in a country like the United States who has a social security system that requires the next generation to be bigger than the last, it is on a very simplistic governmental level, I can see how you would discourage the idea of gay marriage. Yes. That makes sense to me. I don't agree with it morally. I don't agree with it even governmentally, but I can see that from a purely governmental vision of it being at least unproductive to the future of its existence. If it was an AI, maybe that's a better way to put my example. If you had an AI put together and they were overseeing a population, I would see it. I would assume that a computer with zero moral relevance in play would say that no, that makes no sense. Because if I need another generation of people, those 2 people coupling doesn't give me another generation. And that is irrelevant. I don't want to encourage that. Maybe not actively discourage it, but I'm not going to encourage that activity. It makes sense. I'm not agreeing with.
I'm saying it doesn't make sense to me. I'm not saying you're in agreement with it. I'm saying it doesn't make sense to me at all. Because again, I think they should take just the non-verbal or the non-stance of it. And this is dissuading. When I think if you allowed the marriage, I think you could then still encourage people to adopt, go through the highly expensive process. I don't know how parents even afford it, but go through the process of IVF.
Yeah, IVF is ridiculous. I mean, if you're anti-abortion, you hate IVF too.
You're supposed to, but
you should. I mean, functionally speaking, if you're going to place this conception as life game,
right. But that's different. That's families just trying to have a kid. Again, my point is not that. The point is for just if the minimal goal is to survive another generation, you have to have another generation exist. Now, I don't think by outlawing it you're going to just.
I agree. I don't like. I'm not. That's not my point. But on a very simplistic level, my original statement was on a very simplistic governmental level, where you need a generation, you need another generation over and over and over again for your entity as government to continue to exist. If we're going to start a cult out in the woods, like the reason every cult fails is that the leader always ends up fucking everybody else's wife, which is that's its own punchline. But no cult's going to exist long term if the premise of that cult is that only one male gets to breed with all the females, because the generation after that, what's left? It's all inbreeding. It's all inbreeding from there on out. And so if the point of if the cult wants to exist for a significant period of time, inbreeding is a failure and they're going to die.
I feel like you're repeating the same thing kind of over and over. I get the concept that if you have less population underneath the, parent ratio, that a society economically will go down. We're seeing it happen in many of other countries.
Okay.
Where the population has been in decline.
And so
I guess I don't see them being interrelated, because even in the U.S., where we're a pretty Christian nation and still encourage marriage and kind of half discourage any kind of gay marriage, we've still seen a decline in births per couple, basically, or whatever the ratio is.
And so I think I don't.
We're seeing the birth rates go down. It's more economically based. I don't think it's so much anything to do with allowing or dissuading. I can agree. Gay marriage.
I can acknowledge that is probably true. I'm not trying to say that I wouldn't say that isn't true.
I guess I don't see this governmental idea of it.
Again, the
having
core issue
really
is
effect on
the government having any input on it makes no sense to me. That was the number one statement I have, is it doesn't make any sense that they would have any input in the first place. Who cares what you want to do with your time? Why does the government? Who cares who you want to spend your time with? Why does the government?
It's like you were trying to explain it. It's that idea of, if we allow gay marriage, we're going to ruin our population for our next generation and generations beyond that. Which I see it as a false premise, but it seems to make some sense to you.
It makes perfect sense to me. I don't agree with it as a solution, because obviously, like we talked about, there's many ways for same-sex couples to have kids of their own. There's plenty of people that are of opposite sex that are having kids that are a net negative on society at large. So just having more kids isn't a win either.
I remember friends that were single. They were single or only child.
Right. I mean, a bunch of my kids' friends are single or only children.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they did. Maybe do twins count as an only child or not? How does that work? I mean, it kind of is.
No. Do you meld them into one individual?
I mean, they are one thing. They really are. These twins are, at least that I'm thinking of.
I mean, they're between fraternal and identical.
But they're identical twins. Very.
So they did come from one egg, but.
But actually, I've never asked them that, if they had intended on having two kids or if they only wanted one, but they ended up with two on accident. But a lot of my like, it's hit and miss. But I'm trying to think of anyone. Most of my kids' friends are either only children or also two, like we are. It's a 2-kid household or it's a 1-kid household.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I know anybody that has 3 or 4 kids.
I'm saying it's becoming more common. Well, it used to be the joke, was it 2.5 kids or whatever? Right. I think for a while that kind of was the average.
Yeah, it was 2.45 or something like that. I think was the average.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So what's a half kid? Dog.
No, just pregnant, unborn.
Not aborted yet.
2 and 1 on the way.
God, that was a weird tangent. To be clear, I am opposed to gay marriage in the sense that there is some sort of document that the state gets to handle on marriage in the first place. I'm opposed to any marriage that the state has to sanction. How does that make it more sense? The state having the right to sanction or not sanction a marriage, it seems in and of itself the problem, not who's getting married, that the state has a conversation about, it gets to have a conversation about it at all in the first place.
Right. I mean, I guess it would cost you money, I guess. I would think of more of kind of like end-of-life decisions, because I think that's more of where, your status with another person has ramifications as to decisions you can make. And then
let's talk about power of attorney, people. Go ahead and get power of attorney set up with whoever the fuck you want. Doesn't even have to be.
That's what I'm saying. I think it was a way too, but I think you have to pay to have all that set up, versus if you were just married, you automatically have
it's a shortcut to...
you already automatically have that right of, after death, unless a prenup's involved, but you have the ability to make those medical decisions in that time of need. Someone's on a ventilator, etc. There's no one else to make that decision without the power of attorney or spouse.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was one of the reasons, or I think one of the most, kind of heart-pulling strings for gay marriage, that there were these many instances
of insurance gets weird,
of a legal partnership or whatever.
Let's see that, but that's like that again. That's what the problem is like it doesn't make any sense, because like you got, insurance companies can bill you differently whether you're married or not. Like, why would they bill me any differently? Your spouse gets a discounted rate because we got a household full, but only if your spouse is a legal spouse as opposed to your roommate. It's like, well, who cares? Like, is it a volume discount? Because if it's a volume discount, it's 2 people. Who cares what the other person is? Is there a higher risk for a gay couple, and that's why you want to refuse coverage? Okay, well, explain it that way. If it's true, if there's science behind the fact that it's higher risk, then make that argument on why you charge more for a roommate versus a spouse or a partner, as the kids like to call them these days.
I mean, I would think you could go into an insurance agent and be like, hey, me and my roommate want to get on an insurance plan, and they could, you probably wouldn't be in your own group of two individuals, but I would think there'd be some way to get you both on the same plan.
But you're not, I bet you dollars to donuts it wouldn't be the same rate as you and a spouse.
A family plan or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like that seems like antithetical to, I mean, that's like, again, private businesses, whatever they want, I suppose, but like it seems antithetical to open market to permit that. Because why wouldn't some player, I don't know, why wouldn't some insurance player be like, I don't care who you are. You bring me 10 people, I'll put you on a plane together. It's a deal. I don't care if you're family or not.
All right. Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. How do we get to this? This is a weird turn.
Marriage, and I was bringing up medical decisions.
Yeah. Anyway, what else we got going on? What else did I miss that I wanted to touch on? We talked city budget period. I talked to that guy. Yeah, I don't care about that part. City of Knoxville is hosting the AAU Girls Basketball Championships for the next 5 years.
The what? AAU?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's the world championship high school basketball, basically, for girls. I mean, it's cool. It's a big deal. Like, I'm not trying to downplay it as unimportant or anything like that. But again, it goes into that busy city calendar that we've got coming up. It's going to be a crazy year. Maybe I should get a job at the city of Knoxville. I should be a city employee and not be a resident. That'd be hilarious.
You can do it. You don't have to be.
Oh, I know. I didn't say it'd be hilarious because I don't.
Oh, you would be getting city benefits without
paying taxes?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
I mean...
But you're not getting also some of the city benefits of, per se.
Right, I'm not getting resident benefits. I'm getting employee benefits. They're different, for sure. I just want that. I want that pension. want that city pension. You only have to put like 20 years in. Fuck, I'd be 65. Yeah, that'd be right. Yeah. I could put a few years in.
I thought I saw something else locally, maybe not.
Let's see.
See a crazy story about a former Olympian. I guess he was like a Canadian skier or something. It's now on like the FBI's most wanted list. Apparently, he got into like drug trafficking and a bunch of crazy shit.
Nice.
Wait, what? It's not a story you see every day.
Load up that ski bag with some weed.
I don't know what it all was.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I had not heard that story. I don't know. Anything else on the top of the list? I feel like we missed a couple things. There's got to be some stuff going on.
I'm trying to think if I saw anything about another legislation going through. But a lot of these are just kind of in and out of the works. In and out of committees.
I emailed Briggs and asked him some follow-up questions, and his response was, well, it would be appropriate because it hasn't gotten through. It hasn't gotten passed yet. Basically, like what? Like all my questions were like, well, what do I need to do to make sure that I'm above board with all this stuff moving forward? Like it was like 6 questions, but it was all like, am I allowed to do this? Will I be allowed to do this? Right. Will this thing require me to do this?
Maybe should have prefaced, if this goes through as it sits now, which it's hard to know how many times it's kind of been rewritten or little things added to it, taken away. But as your current understanding of the legislation that you are sponsoring,
well, what I should have asked, the way I should have asked it, if it goes through the way if it stays the way you want it to, and maybe it's a better question. When you wrote it, did you consider this, and this? That's really what it was. I really wish. Like I feel like I screwed up. I should have called him years ago for a lot of different reasons, but I don't know if he would have asked me. But like I feel like I could have helped put this together in at least a logical way, even though I'm opposed to it. Like there's stuff that he could have put in there that would have made it. Because I feel like there's stuff that he didn't consider the structure of how the actual thing works. Like he keeps referring to ABC as a great, as being the logical one because they do intoxicating stuff all the time, blah blah blah. But it's like there's a lot of shit from the retailer's perspective or even the distributor's perspective that is incongruent with the way this other product works that you're trying to add to the list. Like the simple one is like in the state of Tennessee, you cannot have an on and off-premise liquor license. You can only have it on or off. So you can have a bar where you can go get a drink, or you can have a liquor store.
Right.
Well, the hemp products fall into the same category. Can you do it here or away?
I thought they kept. What about like the restaurants are allowed to do like to-go liquor beverages or whatever? I thought that was something they kind of kept.
It's sort of still in play, but nobody does it. Right. Because there's no for the customer, like why would you do it in the first place? Like it's so goddamn expensive, comparatively. Like if you can go get a good margarita from a good Mexican restaurant or whatever is one thing, but like I want a Jack and Coke with my steak. Just go get order a bottle of Jack. They can get that delivered too.
Right.
And a case of Coke, you can get those delivered from different places. And even with the extra delivery fees on the bottle of Jack and the case of Coke, it's still going to be significantly cheaper per glass. But that's for delivery. But that was only for delivery stuff anyway.
Right.
And so you could,
and that of like a restaurant could only have either on or off premise.
Right. And
that was one where they could kind of have both.
But not really, because you can't go in. You couldn't go into, like a Chili's. Like you could pick up a to-go order from Chili's, but you couldn't go into Chili's and get sit down and have dinner and a margarita with dinner, and then order a margarita to go.
Right.
But you could order a margarita to go with more food.
Right. I think there was the requirement that you had to get food.
But the food had to go with it.
Right.
Apparently, one of the places down on campus or something like that was doing. They did it at something where it was like a half gallon of some sort of punch, and they would duct tape a saltine packet to the side, and that was the food that went with it.
Yeah. Buy the 25-cent saltine packet. Get a
right. Well, buy a $25 saltine packet. Get a half gallon of hooch
some hunch punch for free.
For free, yeah. So, all right. Well, let's get weird then, Fred.
I have one other little thing.
Oh,
little short thing. That's what we kind of talked about, or something you've kind of wondered is, obviously with having kids of, what should be taught in schools. There's a geopolitical guy like had an interesting video. I guess if he was teaching middle school, what would he teach? I wish he would have gone on other subjects, but one thing he mentioned that I thought was interesting was technical Spanish. He's saying, like, right now, I guess, like, the number one second language in America is Spanish. Mm-hmm. And he was like, a lot of people can speak it. He was like, but kind of in the growing future, he was like, a lot of people, you will be able to get into, like, engineering, kind of like more science and, like, specialized areas. You can have conversational Spanish, but, if you don't know all the different, I mean, you and I could walk into a power plant and have all sorts of jargon thrown at us. And like, what word did you just say? And it would be like they were speaking another language to us.
Right.
So I thought it was interesting.
In English.
Right.
Right.
In English, right. Versus, that being your second language and then having technical, speak coming at you and not understanding.
I don't know. My gut reaction to that is that doesn't make any sense.
I think it makes perfect sense.
If you
in the growing industrialized world, basically,
if your path takes you that direction, sure. Like if you're in a STEM field and you're doing STEM studies and you're going that direction and you have a knack for engineering or something like that is pointing you in the direction that you're going to be in the thing, to then take a technical version of a foreign language that makes sense. Sure,
like I'm not trying to say he said this is the number one thing,
but for middle school.
He was just making it as an example. I mean, that's where I started learning. Actually, I think like third grade was my first like Spanish class, but in middle school I think we were required to take a
they are too.
Year.
They do a thing where they have to take a quarter of Spanish and a quarter of French. Yeah, French in sixth grade, and then they have to take a half year of whichever one they pick, and then another half year, 7th and 8th, respectively.
Yeah,
is that right?
I don't know about the 8th grade, but I do know about the 7th.
Yeah, and so I kind of like the idea of kind of forcing them into both, get a little touch on both, not go crazy with both.
Right.
Just to show them some of the differences.
To see one of the
I think French and Spanish was a poor combo. I think they should do French and German, or French and Mandarin.
I mean, French and Spanish are at least interrelated to an extent.
That's why I think they shouldn't.
Ah, gotcha.
Because they're interrelated, because they're both Latin-based languages.
Right.
You've got a bunch of homonyms anyway, which makes them easier against each other, yes, but it also doesn't give the spectrum available. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you're going to do it, where do German or do, I don't know what else you would, like Mandarin would be the right answer, really.
Right.
Do Mandarin and then do Spanish. Don't give French as an option. If you're not really into Spanish, but you really hate Mandarin and you want a different foreign language, then go into French or Portuguese or whatever.
I mean, when I was at their school, like it was French, German, Latin, and Spanish. I think we had 4 different languages to choose from at that time.
In high school?
Middle school.
Yeah, that's not how they do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I get the premise. I don't disagree with the premise, but I think it's a very specific subset if the rest of the things line up for said subset.
I mean, I agree. That's what I was trying to say. It is definitely, it's going to be more localized depending on the field, but I thought it was an interesting concept.
Right, because I guess to me, I think more the other way about education. I think we need to be more general and less specific, especially early, and let them be specific when they, in the high school years maybe, let them start working towards specificity, which I think is kind of what we do. I think we kind of do more general. Yeah. We do general stuff and then a more advanced version of general stuff as they progress. But I don't know. I still think. I mean, I think we're missing arts and science. I think we're missing a ton in the arts stuff.
Well, it's usually some like the first cuts because a lot of people just the general perception is that they're not quite as educationally valuable.
Right. Which
even though they've said it many a times of like, people that study music in general are generally able to or better learn or better
math. Math's one of the big ones.
Yeah, I think some of it is kind of like in your thought of doing 2 different kind of separate languages, is it does kind of allow the ability of the mind to kind of separate.
Yeah, like play with as much stuff as possible.
Right.
Like just spread it out, get wider. I don't know because
I don't think there's any easy answer to what should be taught.
I think number one to me is I think we need to have a broader conversational question about a true cultural conversation about adolescence, How long is actual adolescence? This goes to my stupid argument about the age of consent and the age of fault and all the other stuff. Like, how long are you allowed to be a kid? I think that's I think those are real questions that we need to answer as a culture, and we don't. We refuse to. Or to me, I think we go to, if anything, if we lean one way or the other, we lean to longer. You're a kid longer. You're a kid longer. You're a kid longer, and I don't think that's good for kids.
I did just remember legislation. I think it's been passed or it's still in the state house, but it has to do with unsealing of juvenile records. That I think, as the state law sits now, that anything before 18 when you're a minor, those records stay sealed. But I think in cases now, I think they're trying to unseal it under certain circumstances to where a judge, I think it's more so to do with sentencing, that I guess a judge, when deciding sentencing, could unseal your juvenile record and trying to better ascertain of maybe your juvenile record.
Okay.
I didn't like the idea because,
I mean,
I was talking about that most people's like basic understanding of, the right chance, even when they turn 18, that their juvenile is in the past, and that's, for many people, it's their chance to
this is your opportunity
change.
To be a big kid,
right.
Go out there, be a fucking adult, act like it.
Right.
And if you screw it up, doesn't matter.
Right.
Or what you did before, at least, doesn't matter. But again, 18, 21, 15, 12, 17, what's the number? I don't know. I think.
Do you agree a number
25,
has to be put on it at some point?
25, whatever. But yes, but it needs to be consistent. Period. Full stop. I don't care what the number is. It just needs to be one. If 25 is the age of adulthood, then so be it. Then everything's at 25. Alcohol, tobacco, buying things on your own, credit, all those different things. Everything is the same age. It doesn't make any sense that the ages move depending on the subset of conversation. That's my complaint. It's not that I think it's too old or too young. It's that
I don't know what's moving around so much. 18 or 21 for most things. I don't see what you think they're constantly moving around.
There's it's not moving around. It's
tobacco got moved up to 21.
It's not that they're moving around. It's that they're different numbers. Period. It's not that they're changing the numbers. It's that 18 was.
Most tobacco got moved up to 21. Now I think 18 is just voting. And when you're, I guess, legally become an adult and are no longer considered a juvenile in the system.
Okay. Well, then everything should be 18. Tobacco, alcohol, all of it. Your ability to enlist, your ability to take a loan, all the stuff that goes along with it, it should be the same number. You shouldn't be able to go, I don't think you should be able to go to the doctor and do things without your parents' consent at 12 or 13 or 14. But some things you can do without your parents' consent at younger ages than 18. It's like, well, if 18 is the number that you're your parents' responsibility, then your parents should be responsible for you, both sides of that responsibility. If you do something wrong, it's on your fault too, as a parent. Okay. If your 17-year-old goes out there and does something, you have some liability in that. Is it the full liability of the action? Probably not. But some, sure. I just think it should be the same number. There should be no different numbers that move around depending on the circumstances. That's my point. It's not move around numbers. It's that all things should be the same number.
I misheard you. Sorry.
No, that's all. I'm just that's always been my argument, and it is that your right to consent shouldn't change depending on the topic. One age, all ages. So let's get weird.
This wild ancient version of soccer has rules like no murder and is still being played today.
I mean, I think it's a fair rule. I think that's a rule in real soccer too.
Yeah.
Or football.
Yeah.
I don't
think it's explicitly said in the rules, but it's an understood rule.
So it's an explicit rule. Is this the Spanish one where it's literally like a fight?
No, that one's. I think that's Italian that I've seen videos of. That's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah. What's this one? Tell me.
Let's see here. The ancient form of soccer has a rule prohibiting from murdering each other. Every year, thousands of people descend on a small town in England. Let's see, for a 2-day game of mass street football that to the casual observer could easily be mistaken for a riot. This is Royal Shrovetide, a centuries-old ball game played in Derbyshire that frankly looks nothing like the world's most popular sport or any other game for that matter.
So it's a small riot.
Let's see here. It's like a tug of war without the rope. Let's see here. I thought there was. Oh, there we go. Play between two teams of hundreds of players. The aim is to goal at either of the 3-mile sector that could take the match through rivers, hedgerows, high streets, and just about anything or elsewhere except for churchyards, cemeteries, and places of worship. The ball is thrown into a crowd that moves like a giant herd. Each team tries to carry it towards their desired goal. Rules are limited, but no murder was an early stipulation for the game that dates back to at least the 1600s.
I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair base rule. So it's just a chaos, violent game because we as human beings love chaos and violence, right? I mean, is that accurate? Am I being inaccurate with my take?
Sorry, what now?
It's a game of violence and chaos because we as human beings love violence and chaos.
To an extent, yeah. See here, you can't practice. You've just got to get in there and be rough. I'm a rugby player. I'm also an ex-boxer, so that helps. I was a retired person that used to play, said he can't play anymore. He's 62 now.
Well, he could play because he's not going to get murdered, at least. All right, so in funny sports, I got one for you. There's video. There's no audio to the video, but this is another non-soccer. It is a very ridiculous version of soccer. We're thinking about putting it on in the holler. So the whole premise is it's soccer functionally, but it's dance. And so there's a set of judges, and you get goals for goals, but you also get goals for your dancing. And so you can win without scoring a goal, even if you give up goals, if you dance better than the other team dances. And so
I wonder which one's weighed more. It sounds like the dancing's weighed more, but you would think at least one of the teams has been like, well, let's see how many points they give us for getting 50 goals.
Right. For just dancing.
Like, all right, 8 of you just keep dancing, and 2 of us are just going to keep scoring over and over again.
Right. And so, yeah. And so
you have to stop dancing after a goal? Like, is there stoppage time?
I don't know. It's I don't know the rules. I need to look these rules up because it just seems more spectacle than anything. Just to have a good time. And those are my favorite kind of, like, I don't want, like, if I'm ever going to put on an event, I don't want events that winning matters. That's my goal in any event that I put on, is that we're here to have a good time, period.
Something I weird about soccer I hadn't really thought of till, like, somebody was talking about it, how it didn't make sense to them with the clock, like, counting up, basically. I was like, oh, yeah, I guess like major sports and Americans think of, the clock's always counting down. Well, no, hockey goes up, or you have a game clock.
No, hockey goes down.
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah. So I was right, yeah. Most sports that Americans think of,
your stats
the clock's
go up.
Going down.
Like the clock in hockey, the stats clock goes up in hockey. So if you score in the 3rd minute, the goal is marked at 3, not at 17.
Right. Because you scored it 3 minutes into the whatever period, whatever.
Right.
I thought that's what I hadn't really thought of just knowing soccer for years or whatever, that someone not knowing as much about like the sport and kind of how it runs, of it just kind of being totally foreign to them. Of like, why does it? I don't get why they don't, because they don't know about stoppage time, etc. They saw that the clock never stops.
Because the clock is irrelevant. I mean, that's
right.
the clock.
It's meant to keep the gameplay going and not stopping all the time.
Well, the clock. I mean, the clock's just to give you an idea.
The clock doesn't stop.
Right. The clock is just to give you an idea. The visual clock is to give you an idea where the game's at, not that it means anything.
Right. It should be pretty close to what the referee has on his watch, basically.
Right. But it's
the televised. But they start that clock whenever the whistle's blown.
Right. Because I mean, honestly, soccer could do it where it's exact. At this point,
I don't think they could. It's like stopping the clock every time the ball goes out of bounds.
Whatever the ref does it, like they could sync whatever his watch is that he's looking at.
I think even then, when you get in like stoppage time, I think it's all up to the referee's discretion, basically. Right?
Sure.
I don't know if it's the referee on field or if it's like off-field referees.
I mean, if you're in a push and like there's 2 minutes of stoppage time and you're 1 minute and 45 seconds in and your team's making a push to win or tie the game or whatever, they'll let it go an extra 15, 20 seconds. But as soon as that push ends, then they kill it.
That's where you've seen, teams that sit there and like kill time and they're like in the corner and just kind of keep like, dribbling the ball around and accidentally kicking it out of bounds or bouncing it off the shin of the other player and getting it out of bounds and wasting his time. Like, I'm going to throw it. Oh, wait. Oh, do you want to throw it in? Oh, okay. Well, why don't you come all the way across the field and I'll let you come throw it in. And just trying to let the clock run down.
We're going to do a substitution now in the 87th minute.
Right. That's what I'm saying. There's already clock wasting that.
Sure.
I think they know it'd be even worse if they tried to like kind of stop the clock and actually keep accurate time.
Well, I mean, they don't have to put that time on the field. They can put that time to the TV audience only. I mean, that wouldn't be hard to do.
I'm not sure how it's decided because you usually see stoppage time is that guy comes out on the middle of the sideline and holds up the big board.
Right.
So I wonder if it's off the field that gets decided.
That's a fair question. But the guy on the field is the one that blows the whistle.
Football. But
they've got their inner ear systems and they're talking to each other the whole time. Anyway, one more.
Let's see.
All right, to break a little bit of the law real quick. Congratulations to somebody in the special tournament win for the ladies something Challenge Cup for the ladies MLS here, and it wasn't Orlando. Orlando lost, so that happened.
Kind of with that in mind, I saw something interesting. I think it was like the Great British Baking Show or whatever, of like the top 10 controversies, and there was like one of the winners that got inadvertently announced by one of the hosts who was in a different time zone and forgot like what time it was being aired back in England or whatever. Like she was in the States or somewhere else, and like put out like a tweet to congratulate the winner, but it was like 2 or 3 hours before the airing of like the final episode where the winner was announced.
Oh dang!
I was like, oops.
Oh dang! That's rough.
Let's see here.
Like I don't get that. Like people like they're like Vegas will put lines out for some of that shit, and it's like, how do you put a line out for something that's taped? Like I have a hard time watching sports that aren't live anyway. But like how like I'm gonna bet on American Idol. I guess I do the final section of American Idol stuff live, but
I was watching some videos, and apparently back in like the 80s and maybe some of the 90s, that some of the NBA games weren't quite as popular, and even they weren't live televised. Like they were filmed and then showed on like Saturday. Right?
Yeah, I can't do. That's the one thing I've never been able to do. I don't care what the game is. I've never been able to tape a football game and watch it later. I can't watch tape sports. I can watch clips, but I can't watch tape sports. All right, hit me with the last one.
All right, last one. You know what happened last week? Last weekend? Second annual Florida Man competition down in Florida.
I did see some stuff on that, actually, yeah. My favorite from the video that I saw, at least, was they do a gator ride where it's a mechanical bull, but they take the bull off and they put a gator on it. I saw there's a lawnmower race thing where they had a bunch of crap piled on top of a lawnmower and they had to run with it. But anyway, Washington Football Club, congratulations, ladies. Good job. Challenge Cup champions.
Let's see, they had the evading arrest obstacle course, beer belly sumo wrestling. New event added this year include hurricane party prep,
nice,
grocery aisle brawl, and human beer pong.
I want to know more about human beer pong.
Oh, I didn't mention that was just one of the new sports.
That sounds.
I'm sure if you went to their official website, they probably had rules of everything.
It seems pretty legit. Yeah. The beer sumo one or whatever, I did see a little bit. A couple
beer belly
sumo. No. I mean, it was like octagon style. They had a ring and everything, and they were just these guys were slamming each other. They had a floaty. They had a pool, a flotation ring.
Yeah.
That they wore, and then they were slamming into each other, but they had a pitcher of beer.
So you had to try not to spill it.
Right, and I don't know if it was like you had to finish what you had left.
Maybe that's what it was. The first one to make the other person spill all their stuff.
Yeah, something like that. It was pretty violent though. Like it wasn't like the video that I saw. Like these guys were going on it. Like it wasn't just kind of like,
who doesn't want to be the Florida Man?
Oh, it was. Yeah.
I'm the winner. I am the Florida Man.
I am the Florida Man in beer sumo. Well, I can't think of any way better to end a show than Florida Man stories. Beer sumo wrestling, human beer pong. I'm gonna have to look that up. We'll talk about that next week. Very excited to learn more about the Florida Man experience. We're Almost in Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, go to the website, almostinagreement.com. There's a link to Hollerboo. That's Holleroo, holleroo.co if you want to sign up. Look for all the cool stuff that we've got going on with that thing. Favorite podcast provider, like, follow, friend, and share, text it to your friends, do whatever you do to share the show. We're going to keep coming at you with what we do, and we're going to bring some more stuff in next week. We appreciate you guys' time tonight, and you be safe out there. It's going to get warm, and I'm excited about that too. All right, bye, everybody.